Bling blong, everyone. Our new podcast miniseries, Talking Mission Hill, is now exclusively on Patreon.
Put on your spicy pants every Friday with a new podcast covering each episode of the cult series from Simpsons legends Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein.
$5 subscribers at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons can hear every episode, plus all of our previous miniseries about Futurama, King of the Hill, and The Critic.
So don't be a Beardsley. Sign up for Talking Mission Hill today.
Cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where it's juice and jam time all the time. I am one of your hosts, sleepy old wizard Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
It's Henry Gilbert, and a chili dog is not a mistake.
And who do we have on the line?
I'm Ian Jones-Quartey, and it's juice and jam time.
Juice and jam. Today's episode is the Sonic the Hedgehog episode, Super Sonic.
Ready and steady. Let's do it to it.
Today's episode aired September 18th, 1993, the premiere of this cartoon, although it is the 5th episode. And joining us, of course, you heard him up front, Ian Jones-Quartey, our old buddy and co-creator of OKKO, Let's Be Heroes.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we've had you on our Evangelion 1, 2 for OKKO, some Talking Simpsons, but I mean, this one is, I think, kind of important to you. Like, you're quite a Sonic fan, aren't you, Ian?
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Sonic at the time that this aired, and I'm still a fan of Sonic today. It's always weird to be a fan of this character.
There are so many iterations and continuities involved.
Yeah.
It's something that's always bothered me. I think it's one of the reasons I couldn't get into the character, because there are just so many versions of him, and I think Nintendo tried to keep it somewhat consistent outside of the movie, the Mario movie.
I feel like Sonic is like it's the definer of like the broken fan base.
Oh yeah.
Not only are there like different continuities, but then also they stopped making the games for like a very crucial time, like when all games were going 3D, and so there was a weird transition, and so now there's a lot of fans of Sonic who don't really know about like where the character came from, and so then there's like, I don't know, there's just a lot of different interesting fan bases for this character that are all sort of in argument over what the character is. And that, I think a lot of that too is, maybe the character is a little bit of a victim of marketing as well. It's sort of like, I kind of feel like, at least when I was a kid, the character was marketed as an alternative to Mario, which it's definitely not. In my view, it's almost like the games are like you're supposed to be time attacking the game. You play it very differently than you play a Mario game.
I did a Retronauts about this, 3 or 4 years ago, and I replayed the games. It's like, Sega was all about like bringing the arcade home, and Sonic was like their arcade interpretation of a platformer, where it was very much like you said about time attacks, about getting through them as fast as possible, and about like peak performance throughout a very, very short game.
Yeah.
Well, in Sonic, that broken fan base thing too is I think it's because it came at the time the internet began. So you have the kids of the early 90s, and then in 1999 comes along, and you have the kids who jump on with Sonic Adventure, and then it was fun, a few years ago when Sonic Boom starts, that we get to see the Sonic Adventure fans mad at younger Sonic fans like we were mad at younger Sonic fans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And Ian has a good point up front in that for half the 90s, there was no mainline Sonic game, like 94 Sonic and Knuckles, 99 Sonic Adventure. In the gulf between those, there's a lot of weird Sonic games, but not like a core Sonic game.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but it's like, it was in that time that I think the fan base really had to latch on to something. So a lot of them latched on to their memories of this show or the Archie comics or just like whatever. And that's when it was weird, because that Sonic drought was also the time that like the internet fan bases were becoming their most entrenched and fervent. So like the fallout from that is still happening, I think, today.
That's so true. Yeah, the fandom was basically caused by a famine of Sonic content.
Yeah, it's true.
And yeah, Ian, for new listeners, like your animator, creator, artists like OKKO, Steven Universe, Adventure Time, Venture Brothers, like so many things. And the Sonic must have influenced you as a young artist too, I would think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was very aware of it because I read video game, magazines like throughout my entire childhood. So, I was very excited just because this character seems so dynamic and new and special. But, obviously he's really just like Felix the cat. But, something about like those proportions and everything like really appealed to me. It was like going to this show. It was like right around this time when Archie was doing their first miniseries of the comic. And I remember ordering those and then like finding out about both of the Sonic shows at the same time. And I really enjoyed both of them as a kid. I think now I probably enjoy the weekday Sonic, the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, a little more. But this was something that was really important to me as a kid. I just loved the character designs, and to this day I think they're just, Sonic is like a very like perfect, like halfway between cute and cool kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess we should indicate up front we are doing the quote unquote serious Sonic cartoon, although it's not that serious, but it's more serious than the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was another cartoon that premiered in 1993 also by Deke. Like what a racket Deke had. 2 different cartoons, syndicated and network, about the same character.
Mm-hmm. For me, my history with it was I definitely was a Sonic player, though. I mean, longtime fans of Henry Gilbert know I'm a Nintendo boy first. But we had a Sega Genesis, like but that was my little brother's system, and he loved Sonic, and I played Sonic 1 and 2 with him, but 2 more because I could just be Tails, and like it didn't matter if I died. Even though I was the older brother, I was in the little brother mode for that game. But so I was ready. I was all primed and ready for the Sonic cartoons and comics that started by 1993.
Yeah, I wish I could remember when I first saw this show, but I probably had an experience that lots of kids had, which was I knew about this character. I had seen the games, I had seen the comic, I'd seen the ads for the character like on TV and in video game magazines. And I was voracious about animation when I was a kid, especially around this time. And I had a habit of kind of taking the TV guide and highlighting every cartoon that was going to air that week. And I just assumed, Sonic is on Saturday morning also. And I remember tuning in and being completely surprised by it.
Just what it was in comparison to the world of the video games?
I think somehow I had missed, I'm sure TGIF did the preview for the show, but I somehow had missed that. So I was completely shocked when I saw this. I was like, I remember it being like, why is the show so different and why is it like this?
Yeah, we were a Nintendo household, though we didn't have 2 consoles. We wouldn't let that Sega into our home, leading us down that path. But I had Sega friends, so I'd experience Sonic and other games through them. But I did like the character a lot. I just like anything based on a video game on TV because it validated my own preferences and hobbies. Like, they're acknowledging what I like to do is important. So I watched every video game cartoon, including this one. And like Ian, I was a person who checked, like a little pedantic child checking TV listings. Were my parents concerned about me, like looking at TV listings at the age of 7 or whatever? But I was 11 when this came out. So by 91, 92, I knew in advance like what the next schedule would be for cartoons, because there would be the preview on TGIF or NBC or whatever that would let you know, and also like the weekly listings and things like that. So I knew this was coming, and I knew like I want to watch the Sonic show. And I don't know if Adventures premiered before, but I think it did, maybe by a few weeks.
Yeah, by a couple weeks. Yeah.
So I was already watching that like for 2 weeks. So I was ready for another Sonic cartoon. But I think at the time I was confused. Like the cartoons based on video games being inaccurate to the source material bothered me. So I have a feeling like this bothered me because both versions were different, but also nothing like the game.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They both required a lot of imagination.
I was primed for this in a good way, though, marketing wise, because I remember it clear as day. It was in the summer. I'm with my parents. We're going to get gas, like on the way home. And so, like the nerd I was like, oh, gas station. I know exactly where in this gas station the comic book rack is, going straight to it. And I saw Sonic #1. Like, I bought Sonic #1 from Archie
I think
when
I did
it
too.
was new. And
Oh, was it miniseries 1 or regular series 1?
regular
Do you
series
remember?
1. Regular
I see.
series. Yeah, and I took that home, and I remember reading it as the dog show episode of Ren and Stimpy was on Snick. I remember reading it while that was on.
What a time to be alive. Actually, I just had a memory where as a kid, I like getting things in the mail. So at the back of the video game magazine, it's like, check off who you want, resources from or whatever. Like the publisher will send you newsletters or whatever. And one of them was Sega. So I got like a free subscription to Sega Visions from the beginning until when it ended. Like they just kept sending the magazines to my house. I never paid for it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I do think the comic told me that the show would exist, though that is even more confusing to me because I also believe it was the Thanksgiving of 1993 was when I finally saw Adventures of Sonic, because the times it aired in my area, it conflicted with my school schedule, so I just didn't see it until a day off. And when I saw that, I had already been watching Saturday morning, and it lined up with the Archieverse much more, so I completely rejected Adventures the second I saw it as a kid.
Yeah, it's really funny because I used to just beg my parents for any comic stuff. So I was getting Archie digests at any time we went to the store, and those really heavily promoted Sonic at the beginning. I feel like they might have even printed a story from there, but you could send away for the miniseries when it was coming out. And so that was my first experience of that. And when the show came out, or when Adventures came out, the tone of that was similar to the comic. But the characters were similar to the other show, so it was very confusing as a kid.
I've come to like Adventure more now, and I look forward to, in the future, Ian, you should come back and we can do Adventures together as a partner episode of this. But I really did like this when it was new. I was not much of an ABC Kids viewer. I think it was the only show I watched on ABC. Like, I was much more of a Fox kid watching Batman and X-Men instead.
I never went back to this until I was working at US Gamer, and I was like, what can I write about today? How about this cartoon? It's supposed to be really good. Maybe it was better than I remembered, and I don't think it is as good as you remember. It's still much better than a lot of the Deke stuff they were putting out. A sore spot for me is the character of Antoine, who is just inexplicable and an inside joke about the president of Deke, who ruins the show, and thankfully he is not in this episode, because what is this Frenchman doing here?
It's tough. I think the thing about the show, the reason why it was seen as so special from that time on was it was very rare for a show to have lore. And even though some of the lore in the show seems kind of haphazard, but they make it all seem like it's going to be very important. And I guess we'll touch on some of that in this episode too. But it's I think the mystery of that was really exciting at the time. At least that's how I remember it being.
Yeah. What I like as a kid, and I think it still holds up today, although other cartoons now do this a lot better, is that there are real stakes in this. Nothing is that frivolous, and their victories are always very small. Like at the end of this episode, the victory is now they have electricity.
Well, and also what shows had linear overarching plots then too? Gargoyles would premiere the next year after this, and but most American shows did not have that, and you definitely would not have expected expected that from a Deke show either. Like when we did Ghostbusters, they do some serious Ghostbusters, but they had to fight, like J. Michael Straczynski, I think it was the head writer or one of the top writers. He talked about how like they had to fight tooth and nail with Deke to get anything serious, or and that also the networks just demanded like kidify this, make it kiddier, you know?
Right. Up until that point, you'd get like the odd two-parter or something in a show. But I guess what they did with Sonic was kind of rare in that it seemed to have like a consistent universe where things kind of like carried over, and there were like existential questions about the character. I don't know if it always pays off the way that maybe it's set out to do, but I don't know. At the time, it was very impressive.
And I think its open-ended mythology did inspire like a lot of people to be creative and like make their own rest of the story for it too.
Yeah, including the people at Archie Comics. And this comic, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it in your history, Henry, but this comic just ended like 3 years ago.
And rather abruptly, too. But it both lasted longer than I thought it would. But then when it ended, I'm like, oh, I kind of wanted the Archieverse to last like as long as Spider-Man. Like we'd be hearing about the 50th anniversary of Archie Sonic, you know?
Yeah, that's a real shame, actually, just because, the characters from this show got this interesting second life in that comic. And, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the legal bonanza that happened, but now like these characters from this show are kind of just like dead and buried. I don't know if we'll ever see them again. So it's kind of a shame for the people who got attached to them.
But okay, let's get into the history. A quick history of just the character Sonic the Hedgehog before this show started. So there's the video game developer Sega, which by the late 80s, very successful in the arcade scene, but, the home console market, they just can't get a foothold in it. They can't keep up with Nintendo. They created a thing called the Master System, which, doesn't do so well in Japan and the US. Does a bit better in the UK, in Europe, and South America, though. But they really are lacking their own kind of best-selling, like, mascot platformer title to match Mario. They try with the series Alex Kidd, but it doesn't really go, which I didn't know that was a Dragon Ball game first. Did you know that?
It was?
I just found that out.
Yeah.
I guess he is like a monkey boy, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, if you see in the game like Alex Kidd, I've seen the sprite of him like eating a big rice ball, and it's just a drawing of Goku, like Kid Goku eating a rice ball. I just learned this recently myself.
I guess if you weren't there, mascot platformers were the Fortnites of their time. Like everyone was trying to make the best one, right?
That's right. That's a great way to put it. You had to have one. Like, it's 1990. They've launched the Mega Drive / Genesis, and it's not doing so hot either. They think Altered Beast is their hot arcade port. Everybody's going to buy a Genesis for this, but both in Japan and in America, nobody's buying it for that. Like, I thought Altered Beast was cool as a kid, though, but at Sega of Japan, character designer, artist / Naoto Oshima and developer Yuji Naka are primarily tasked with coming up with something as iconic as Mickey Mouse and his system selling as Mario, which like that is a pretty hard job to be given. And Oshima in fact admitted that a big breakthrough for him was pasting the head of Felix the Cat onto the body of Mickey Mouse.
One and done. Yeah, I mean there's a great account of this in an OK book, Console Wars. I think it's an OK book, but I feel like the book is written to be a movie and that's its first goal. But there's a lot of it behind the scenes info about like how people collaborated and how this like internal contest worked to create a new character. And one of the characters was going to be like Eggman was like one of the first characters developed, right?
Right, yeah.
As like the sleepy Teddy Roosevelt pajama boy.
The Console Wars, and there's other sources that back it up too, but yeah, Console Wars makes a good point that like Sega of Japan wanted this for the Genesis, but they did want it to sell in America, but they also didn't trust any instincts by the American side, but eventually they just let the American side have their way for the most part. But yeah, so they're creating this fast-paced platformer. They eventually come up with a character of Sonic, this cool, sleek, but cartoony looking guy who feels like the opposite of what Mario is. Meanwhile, Sega of America, they're empowered by their leadership, which includes a former Mattel executive, Tom Kalinske. They want to shape Sonic into a more toyetic, marketable character from an American standpoint. So they flesh out a character Bible for him stateside that is totally in conflict with what Yuji Naka and his team thought Sonic's backstory was.
It's so weird. I mean, because Kalinske, it was G.I. Joe Mattel, or were they Mattel figures?
That's Hasbro.
Okay.
He was He-Man. He-Man was his big one.
I think one of the things he noted was like kids want to know the story of the toy, which is why on the back you have like the bio of the character, which is why the Bible sort of came first for Sonic. But I don't know if you read into it, but there's so much weird shit in it. Like Chuck Yeager's involved somehow.
It's a very confusing character Bible.
I absolutely love that Bible. It's so weird, and I just want them to actually turn. I wish the Sonic movie was based off of that Bible.
Sonic's from Nebraska or something.
Yeah,
right.
His name is Sonny, and he lives in Nebraska, and it's so crazy.
Also though, the original Bible does mention the planet Mobius. It does name that. They name the super scientist Evo Robotnik. I've been saying Ivo this whole time, but that
It's
Bible
Evo.
says Evo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Evo, yeah.
Back then we were at war with the Russians.
And also it does mention that Sonic has a squirrel friend named Sally Acorn.
It's really fun, if you've tracked sort of the things that get brought up in that Bible, because his other animal friends that are named there, like Johnny Lightfoot, Porker Lewis, etc.
Porker Lewis.
They all end up in the UK comics, the UK Sonic.
That's
comics.
right.
Right. Yeah.
Porker Lewis is as timeless as a reference as Morton Koopa Jr. Bring back Porker Lewis.
And I think it's right in the 91 Bible as well that his favorite food's chili dogs. I think it's something that eventually the Japanese games even adapted to. Fine, he eats chili dogs.
I think it's for the best. Just choose a thing. Kids love food, so just choose a food and have that be the character.
And pick a food that a kid would eat, like a chili dog too. It's perfect, and it's a fun word to say. It's kind of extreme. I mean, you got to think that chili dog choice is at least a little informed by everybody knows the Ninja Turtles love pizza. What's our pizza for Sonic?
And I guess Mario just had by the cartoon that was invented, Mario was like, I like pasta, I like pizza. Mario was so non-specific with his food choices in that cartoon.
Yeah.
Anything Italian, and that could lead to an Italian food pun. A lot of that character Bible is a far cry from what we know as Sonic the character, and it would lead to a schism that would last until 99 of him being Eggman in Japan and Robotnik in the US. And I've seen them say technically his name still is Dr. Robotnik, but no character calls him that. He's called Eggman by every character, but
the movie brought him back to Robotnik, though.
That's true. That's right.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the Princess Peach and Princess Toadstool schism. That they bridged maybe in one game in Mario 64. They were Peach, Princess Toadstool, and so you're oh, I guess it's both, and then they just moved to Peach after that.
Yeah, that's such a weird choice in that game because she goes, dear Mario, I baked you a cake, please come get it. Princess Toadstool, Peach. When I played that game as a 14-year-old, is she signing off with the word Peach? Is this something I don't know about? Yeah, weird.
The early Sonic adventure stuff was so very similar. He was Robotnik. He introduced himself as Robotnik, but Sonic called him Eggman, and he was just Eggman from that point on.
He's like, I remember that scene. It was reminding me that my childhood was over. That's what that scene felt like when seeing a Sonic adventure where he says you will call me Robotnik. Yeah, right, Eggman. And that was it. That was it from then on.
I did like some of the Japanese ideas where Sonic was in a cool band and he had a human girlfriend.
Yeah, Madonna.
Yeah.
I think her name was.
She was Madonna.
Yeah. I absolutely love all that stuff, all the weird early Sonic canon. But all that went by the wayside. I guess this did too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
I also really like the early Sonic manga where he's the alter ego of a kid who's just a kid named Nicky who gets knocked out and then becomes Sonic.
Wow.
They're they're very weird comics, and they actually like that's where Charmy the Bee and Amy Rose actually come from, like these early Sonic manga from like 92.
Wow, I didn't know this.
Yeah, and like a lot of that stuff is it's kid named Nicky who lives in Hedgehog Town, and then when something bad happens, like he gets knocked out, and then he wakes up, and everyone's like, "Sonic saved the day, you weren't there," but he really like turns into Sonic. It's a very bizarre thing.
I have to check this out now.
Yeah, Japan they made their stabs at doing weird Sonic comics and cartoons also.
So with a summer 1991 release and selling on a brand packed in with Genesis models, at least in the US, it was a huge hit. Sonic became the system seller. It helped too that he was packed full of 90s attitude, and his commercials were sold with this adversarial relationship towards Mario. Like definitely the commercial of the teacher, the old librarian going like, "Why can't he be nice like that, like a Mario boy?" Like that. It worked on me. It did.
Yeah, and then Nintendo was feeling the heat. I want to say like Diddy Kong was their response to Sonic. It's just like, we could have a cool guy with a hat, perhaps.
Yeah. Oh man, the 90s console commercial wars over who could be more offensive. They just got so crazy by the end.
Yeah, that's God. The explosions, the vomit, the express thing that Yoshi Island, one of the cutest and sweetest games ever, that it is just so packed with content that it's a fat guy exploding. I was like, this is how you advertise it?
They need a different metaphor.
Yeah, that's probably the worst one. I still remember the chunks sliding down the Play It Loud logo.
Oh God, yeah. Now Wario hypnotizing you to hate Mario, that's a great commercial.
Yeah,
I love that one. But so Sonic, huge hit. The Genesis is actually primed to outsell the Super NES at the launch of it, which takes everybody by surprise, and they'd have a sequel ready by the next fall that would not only continue the series but also give him a proper sidekick, Miles Tails Prower, another naming convention that they have to be like. I remember in that Console Wars book, Kalinske tells the story that Sonic Team was not Sonic Team, STI, they were very set on him being called Miles Prower, it being a parody or a pun on miles per hour. And they were like, no, he's called Tails. But look, here, I'll write in his character bio, I will say, this is his name, and there's a birth certificate somewhere that says Tails' name is this, but he's Tails, okay?
I mean, like, well, I don't know where they got off frowning at that pun, because they made up bad puns themselves. Like Robotnik, right? You made up Robotnik. How are you going to say Miles Prower is bad?
Yeah, it really just seems like they were just in a fight for control.
And that's why, if you remember in some Sonic 2 stage, I know there's like a Miles spray painted in the background.
Yeah, I mean...
It's all over that game, actually. Yeah. Like, even like the background tiles that animate, they animate from the word Sonic to the word Miles, not Tails.
And like that game was developed in America, and a ton of the Japanese team flew over here to make it at Sega in America.
Yeah, that's so wild to me too. That seems like Eugene, he sounded like he was having issues himself with Sega of Japan. So including Mark Cerny, who's now like the head of PlayStation, he was heading up the STI, Sega Technology Institute, and had him come over like, just make Sonic 2 here. While meanwhile, the other Sonic people make Sonic CD. So you basically have two Sonic 2s that exist independently.
Hey, it's kind of similar to Deke making two Sonic cartoons.
You're right. Well, and so with Sonic 2 coming out in 1992, it's way past time that he has his own animated series. Like, that's just what you do with a character as popular as him. Meanwhile, by 1992, Deke is in a very weird place. When we last talked about them on the podcast, we did the Ghostbusters show, which was their big hit, The Real Ghostbusters. Plus, they had all the Nintendo series, the Mario series, from taking them from like 89 to 92, pretty much.
Yeah, they just wrapped up all those series, including the Zelda one too, as part of the Super Show.
And after the Super Mario World show, they're done with Nintendo. Like the deal's over. Just they don't make another Nintendo show. And so why not go with the new hotness that's the opposite of Nintendo and start working with Sega? So they make a deal with Sega to do a Sonic show, one show, and pre-production begins, early 1992, at least based on the dates in the series Bible, like publication dates. And Deke wants to take a similar approach they did with, Ghostbusters. And also that I believe like Disney Afternoon is doing the same deal, which is you make your syndicated episodes and then you make your exclusive to network ones and you sell both.
But it's usually the same show.
Yes, yeah. Though Ghostbusters eventually, thanks to ABC's influence, morphed into a different show, but it started as the same show.
Right.
So they're pitching it to ABC, and as told by former Deke executive vice president Robbie London to Polygon this year, in early 1992, they go to ABC, and they're trying to sell them the syndicated show. ABC doesn't want the same show that's in syndication, and they turn down the show that they're working on, which is Adventures of Sonic. And so Deke then decides they're going to pitch a different flavor of Sonic to ABC, a completely different show, or a clearly separate show with a different tone and cast of characters and everything. So Deke presented it, or Robbie London in that article was like, it was two shows at the same time and it never happened before. Yeah, sure, it is two separate shows, but they're pretty they come from the same place.
Yeah.
It is really interesting though, because the creative teams didn't overlap either. So it was like two separate productions entirely, which is like, I mean, it happened before, but the Saturday morning Aladdins weren't like a different like tone than the weekday Aladdins. So it was, I don't know, very like unprecedented in some ways.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, Adventures was the one that got to come back 3 years later for that special meant to promote Sonic Extreme.
That's right. Yeah. We did a whole retronauts.
Sonic Christmas Blast.
Yep.
I love at the end of that because he says like, have an extremely good Christmas, which is like, well, it's that the game didn't come out.
It never will. Christmas is canceled.
He replied at the end of that. Santa Claus is like, "You're Santa now, Sonic. You're better than me."
There's no more episodes to follow up on that premise. Like, what if Sonic was Santa? The series.
But yes, so they sell it to ABC. I can see, ABC, they're losing to Fox at the time. They want the coolest thing, and Sonic is still pretty cool by the airing that would start in 1993. And also it helped that Deke had, I had gotten this order mixed up, but I think I got it now, that Deke had gotten Steve Urkel himself, Jaleel White, to be Sonic in their show, and that so they were able to sell to ABC, hey, we've got your biggest star of TGIF on our show.
That's perfect.
Easy to sell. Like,
this show has a murderer's row of voice actors. I don't know if they were trying to prove something, but like every big voice actor from the 90s is on this show, except maybe Frank Welker.
No, he's in it too.
Fuck.
He's in it too. Yeah.
I should have known better. I should have known.
They're all here.
All our favorites are back. Yeah. So Len Jansen is the head writer of the show. He develops the series Bible for it, which Ian, I think you read it more closely. I just skipped around in it, and I think you can see that it kind of like uses that original Sega USA Bible as a starting point, but it then kind of builds its own thing pretty quickly.
Yeah, it kind of goes off in its own way. What I found really fun about it is it's really like going for that tone. Like, I think it specifically mentions Blade Runner and like other stuff. And like when you hear the show, the music is just a knockoff of Back to the Future.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's like there's robots that just look like ED-209 from RoboCop. It's like they're really going for that kind of cyberpunk sort of vibe, and like they really go into it in the Bible too.
Yeah, the sci-fi post-apocalypse thing with magical elements, like it's an interesting way that's where they use that to jump off of, the game world is pretty directive. Like there's a guy who has giant machines and it's nature versus machinery. Like that's the battle, and it's kind of, an early 90s like Captain Planet kind of eco-y message to it too, which
also I really recommend looking up the Bible for this show because a lot of it is written in first person from Sonic. And he says stuff like, you think living in Burbank is bad? B-Town is paradise compared to Mobius.
Oh.
You know?
Burbank is delightful. I love going to Burbank.
Maybe 1992 Burbank was worse. I don't.
It was a real hellhole.
Yeah, well, and though it's funny too with that original Bible, it has a lot of the names and tone that the first Archie Sonic comics will kind of go with, but then they even make more of a change after that, like not just seeing like Boomer becomes Rotor, for example, but
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
but also like there is. So it was hard to pick a first episode to do on this because the first one on the DVD, which originally we were going to do, that's the Antoine episode. And then after I watched it, I was like, guys, let's not do this one, please. Antoine sucks. So then we did this one, which is the first one that aired. But then they did a pilot that was the final one to air in season 1 that is this weird like missing link in between Adventures and SatAM.
Interesting. I had a theory while watching this where it feels like the intro you see, with the song and everything, that feels like a pilot pitch that Deke had made because the premise is kind of the same, but it shows like here's what's going to happen in an episode, but like the population of other critters is not in this world. Like there are no other people in this world, right? That are just like out living in cities or whatever.
Yeah, I really don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell how this came about. But it really feels like when you're looking at all this information that they were just moving super fast. And like just trying to get like all this stuff out. Like for instance, like, the way that a lot of the information in the SatAM Bible, it seems like they just printed off what they had and sent it to Archie. They also did the same thing and gave it to the Sonic Spinball team because you see like some of the stuff from Sonic Spinball is from this Bible as well.
Yeah, like Sonic Spinball is related to this, like visually, and then Mean Bean Machine is related to the other cartoon. They just needed source material. But yeah, I mean, they were working so fast at Deke, and like we've been doing Deke shows, especially shows from this era, and it's just like one guy will write a season, right?
It's funny because so the current president of Cartoon Network Studios, Brian Miller, he was a producer for Deke in the early 90s. He also produced this show.
Wow.
And I remember I asked him because he worked on Mario, Zelda, like all those things. And I asked him once, like, what was it like working on these shows? And he was just like, we had no time. We would get the footage back from overseas, whether it was Korea, the Philippines, or Spain. We would just cut it in together and we would send it off to network like the next day. Like we had no time to kind of like double check a lot of these things. We were just moving really fast because they had so many deals and commitments that they had to make all at once to like all these different places. He said it was very much like a whirlwind.
Yeah, like there are some shots in this where I felt, oh, there's no retake on this because like the camera's oddly zoomed in on Sally for no reason. Just like what's happening around Sally that they're not showing us.
Yeah.
Yeah. That the first produced episode, the characters look like how I remember from the first issue of Sonic I had, which is like a pink Sally with a a ponytail, and that Rotor is more of like this food monster, Goofy type character who just like bumbles around and eats stuff, and even Robotnik is played much even I feel certain watching it they re-recorded Jim Cummings in the role later because he's played so differently. He's much more in the wacky adventure style of Robotnik, though it's the same character model across all Sonic AM though, but still it's weird. There's also like a very Adventures moment of Robotnik shoots a Sonic homing missile that has like a Sonic type hair thing on top of it, and Sonic jumps on top of it and he goes like hey buddy, like he pokes its shoulder, and then it looks back at Sonic. The missile like becomes humanoid for a it's a very Adventures moment.
More Bugs Bunny stuff.
Yeah, it's weird how many artifacts of this time there are. Like Sonic arcade game, Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. It has sprites in it for a Western version that was never put in arcades, where Robotnik's sprite has been changed to look like the SatAM Robotnik.
Yeah.
There's just a bunch of like bizarre stuff where it's like you see weekday Robotnik interacting with Sonic and Sally, in like, weird whatever, like children's like picture book or whatever about Sonic that was out at the time.
Yeah, they didn't Sega and Deke they didn't have the tightest grip on what versions were where back then. But like you said, they were making it so fast you don't have time for that,
And with all these friends that they add, what surprised me about this episode is there's no Tails. Like Sonic 2 was the new game at this point. Sonic 3 wouldn't be out until this thing was out of episodes from the first season.
Tails is in this show, but he is such a baby. I was joking with Ian about this. Like he doesn't appear in every episode.
Right, he's not in this one.
Yeah, and he's the baby who can't go anywhere. It's
somebody needs to watch Tails, all right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, we were talking about the Bible, but like in the Bible, there's like a section about Tails, and he's like written like, I'm only 4 years old, and I'm not supposed to go on adventures. It's like very hard to read.
Ooh, God, yeah, not that he's played particularly mature in Adventures of Sonic as well, but he at least can like do stuff with Sonic. He's like, oh, really, Sonic? Like that's the kind of sidekick he is in Adventures. But yeah, Len Jansen, he wrote the Bible or he co-wrote it as head writer. That had Tails, Princess Sally Acorn, Badass Bunny Rabbit, the Gearhead Rotor, Annoying Frenchman Antoine. Robotnik is even given he's given 2 sidekicks because he's got Cluck the bird robot.
All right.
And also Snively. And yeah, it's a cyberpunky post-apocalyptic thing where they're trying to free the planet Mobius from like a totalitarian rule, and it's a darker show, like also coloring wise too, a darker show. And Ben Hurst is the second most prominent writer in it, and along with usually he co-wrote with Pat Alley. And Ben Hurst, the late Ben Hurst, he passed away 2010, but it's thanks to his involvement and investment into the Sonic community online that we know as much as we do about the behind the scenes and what could have been on the show. Like Ben Hurst was very involved in the news groups for Sonic, alt.sonic news group stuff.
I remember back at the time when I was like really heavy into the Sonic fandom, like it was always like exciting to get like a salvo of information from these people who were like these untouchable writers of the comics, but him too, like in the cartoon.
Yeah, it was way ahead of, now we're just used to if you have a favorite creator or comic writer, all those folks, you can just follow them on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook and stay in the loop on that stuff. They're pretty public of it. But like Hearst was ahead of the curve of just like Greg Weisman when we talked about on the Gargoyles thing, like these early creators who engaged with their hardcore fan base, and it both in hopes of trying to continue the show they also really loved. And the credited character designer on the series is Kenneth Kinoshita. So I think he's responsible for the design of the most of the freedom fighters in this. Though I'm sure there's many artists touched it, but he's the credited one. And we talked about that cast. You've got Jaleel White, who was 15 or 16 when cast in the role of Sonic.
We're like at peak Urkel right now.
100%, yeah. I can't, when I think of Urkel and Family Matters now, I can't not think of the Key and Peele sketch about him taking over. But that was how powerful Urkel was.
I was a big Family Matters fan, TGIF viewer at this point, so I'm sure that lured me in as well.
I watched all the TGIF shows like almost like semi-religiously.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember telling my older brother, oh, Sonic, that's Jaleel White. It's Urkel. And he didn't believe me.
Back then you had to look closely in those credits to know it was him, or you'd have to see him interview on like the Rosie O'Donnell show saying like, no, it's me in both those. And yeah, there's this great DVD featurette he did for the very out of print DVD set for this show where he was very he takes a lot of pride in Sonic. He loved playing Sonic. I think he'd be happy to do it again. Like it's just cool to see how much like he really cares about the character.
Yeah, his discussion of like where the voice came from, how he was trying to kind of take cool characteristics from like a surfer dude, but also like a cool like street punk wise guy, and kind of meld them all together into like a cool voice that is every cool voice all at once is like, I don't know, it's very impressive to me.
Yeah, Jaleel White, I think, is an underrated performer, honestly. I think he and Reginald Vell Johnson were the Laurel and Hardy of the family sitcoms, if I can go that far.
No, I mean, like, honestly, like watching those Family Matters episodes, the balancing act that Jaleel does is crazy. And then when they start to realize that he's good enough to be not only Urkel, but Stefan Urkel and Myrtle Urkel, his southern cousin who's a woman, and Jack and Bruce Lee Urkel and Elvis Urkel.
I don't think he was in the Urkelbot costume, though, unfortunately.
No, that wasn't. That was the guy from Breakin' too.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, I remember there was an episode where Stefan pretended to be Urkel, and it was the most subtle performance like ever, where it's like he is himself pretending to be another person pretending to be himself. It's just nuts.
Man, I haven't seen that one. I gotta go back to that. As a TGIF raised kid, I watched it until probably like the 8th season or so. Or, nah, maybe 7th season. But
You didn't fall to CBS?
no,
Yeah.
no. But yeah, and also that he was able to play Sonic like kind of in. He does play him on a different level in this show than he does on Adventures as well.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, the Adventures Sonic is like, he's like Bugs Bunny, but he's also very like kind, and he kind of like almost not talks down, but is like, he's like a very understanding older brother type. Whereas here he's like a little different.
Yeah, he's more in like the Han Solo mode in this show.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I recommend everybody go out and listen to a podcast Hunter and I did about a year ago, I think. It was called The Many Voices of Sonic the Hedgehog. It's a Retronauts episode, and we talked about Sonic's many voices in both Japan and America. And it felt like a betrayal when Adventure came out that Jaleel White was not voicing Sonic.
Oh, and yeah, it's
Sonic Adventure. Not the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, but the video game Sonic Adventure. Like, Jaleel White, you had him in 99. You could get Jaleel White in 99.
I remember thinking about that too. And to go back to like the broken fan base schism on OKKO, we did a Sonic kind of crossover. And of course, you know, I'm nostalgic for, you know, what one could call like the Attitude Era Sonic, where he was like this guy who was like too cool for everything. But, you know, something I didn't see coming was that a lot of the audience who is younger grew up with a Sonic who is just kind of like just a nice guy. He's just like a nice dude who like hangs out until Adventure calls him, and he's sort of like, hey, never give up, follow your dreams, you know, which is a very different Sonic than the one I grew up on.
He's not looking at you and tapping his foot as you leave the controller behind.
Yeah. Yeah, in watching these and the episodes of Sonic I watched for this, like there's so many times where they definitely have Sonic do the look at his watch or be like, hello, let's hurry this up, like that. They really have left that in the past with the Sonic characterization now.
I think one of his catchphrases in the other cartoon is, I'm waiting.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned it in your OKKO episode with Let's Meet Sonic. Like, you do a great balancing act of fitting in all these different versions of Sonic that can all work, and with, you know, and the voice actor for Sonic there, Roger Craig Smith, like he is so good at being all these, like containing these multitudes of Sonic in his portrayal of him.
Yeah, but it's just interesting that, you know, this version of Sonic's personality is maybe only in the heads of the people who were there. And for the kids who their first Sonic was Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on GameCube, or even their first Sonic was, I don't know, Sonic Colors or whatever, this isn't Sonic to them. Like, you know, he's not like a wise guy in this same way.
Oh, and Bob mentioned the murderer's row of voice actors in this. Like clearly they spent a bit more on the cast than they did for the Mario shows, I think.
Not voice acted in Canada. Yes, what's happening on this show.
No, and they got voice director Jenny McSwain, who was voice director on tons of stuff. She still does it today. She worked on just about every Disney afternoon show, and so many. Pretty much, if it wasn't Andrea Romano, it was probably Jenny McSwain on a good show. But yes, you've got Jim Cummings as Robotnik, Kath Soucie as Sally Acorn, Charlie Adler as Snively. You got Rob Paulson as Antoine. You've got the late Christine Cavanaugh as Bunny Rabbit, and recurring roles for actors like Tim Curry, Dana Hill, and Cree Summer, among many others. Like, Ian, you worked with this show's Robotnik quite a lot.
Yeah, Jim Cummings, and I tried to get him to channel this character, but he's played so many evil dudes. I think the thing that stands out about this Robotnik is the way Jim plays him. It's sort of like he's constantly getting turned on by being evil.
A little bit.
Yeah. He's one of those bad guys that is he knows he's evil. It's like, yes, that's me.
Yeah, in this episode he has something I was like, that sounds good. Like, yeah.
And he's got one of those sidekicks that's like, yes, your rottenness. Yes, your most vileness.
Yeah, just the very oh yes, very good, Snively, very good indeed. It's just very it's so in your face.
And in OKKO he played a Robotnik like villain of Lord Boxman, except he's much crazier and sillier. Cummings' performance as Boxman is much bigger than his Robotnik in this.
Yeah. I think this character is much more of a smoldering evil, not like a wacky evil. But I like both things.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It was fun hearing Cummings do the more adventure style, like, I'll get that, I ate that hedgehog.
It sounds like if Jim Cummings was cast in that show instead of this one, that's the take he'd do.
Yeah, it's really funny because I was like, hey, can you do this Robotnik line like this? And he was like, that's the one that wasn't me. Why do you want that?
There's a really weird scene with him in one of these episodes of Robotnik's character where he's like, look at my heart, Snively. And he opens his mouth gigantic, like as big as Snively's head is. And he just looks down his throat like, I don't see your heart. It's weird stuff like that with Robotnik.
We learned it's a metallic heart in this episode.
Yes. And this Robotnik is partially roboticized too. This is very, very different from the round man who runs really fast from Robot to Robot, or of the video games, who we talked about in that Lupin episode. They just took straight from that Hayao Miyazaki cartoon. Oh, but yeah. So season 1's director was Dick Sebast, who he boarded. He also is the main boarder credited for the main title sequence. Has a long career mainly in the story department on stuff. Early credits were on a lot of Hanna-Barbera and Ruby Spears stuff before he headed over to Deke. After this show, he'd go over to work on some of the Saban Marvel stuff like Spider-Man and Hulk. His most recent credits were in the mid-2000s on some Disney and Universal stuff, so I don't know if he's retired. He does not have a LinkedIn that I could find, so not sure what he is up to. And the season 2 director was Ron Myrick, another longtime TV vet, got his start in Filmation. I feel like we say this every episode, but his first credit is Fat Albert. Everybody got their start on Fat Albert.
Like Fat Albert or Tarzan, one of those Filmation cartoons.
But yeah, he worked Filmation, Hanna-Barbera, Deke. He would go directly from Sonic to working on Garfield and Friends at Phil Roman. And currently he does timing direction on the Marvel stuff at Disney, like Avengers Assemble. So Ron is still at it. And overseas production was handled by Korean production studio SatAM and Spain's Milimetros, which I'm not sure what SatAM, they work on everything up to now. Didn't they work on OKKO?
SatAM, not KO, but I knew them a lot from Adventure Time and Regular Show. They worked on both of those. Yeah, they're a great studio. I think like there was a time when it was like on Adventure Time, it was like Rough Draft and SatAM were our two studios, and SatAM did some really good episodes, some really good stuff.
But Millimetros, like that was the one that confused me because I'm not used to, on the cartoons we do here, seeing the overseas production was from a European company. But yeah, that also spreads it out even more. Like it's hard enough doing, across the Pacific Ocean coordinated productions, but then to also have it across the Atlantic Ocean too in a pre-email age, that doesn't sound easy.
Yeah, that's very Deke. Spreading productions around like that was, definitely what they were known for. I mean, when you look at stuff like Inspector Gadget and, spread stuff around. I wanted to mention really quick, there's like some early artwork for this cartoon that comes at like a almost like different period for it. There's like a sales card that actually like says like, oh, this is going to be European distribution by Silvio Berlusconi's communication company. And it's a completely different version of the show that like includes, Porker Lewis and Flicky. Tails isn't even there, but like there's a different Princess Sally in this also who's like blonde.
Wow.
If you're listening, you should look this up. It's from Sonic the Poster Mag, which was like the UK Sonic, which was one of the UK Sonic publications.
Oh man, I gotta look this up. They were so confused about what the show would be, but like they're just moving so fast. You could send out your character pack of characters to Europe one day and then the next week it's changed.
Yeah, it's super interesting, like how this thing came to be.
And so they finished 13 episodes for the first season. It premieres September 1993 on ABC. It was big ratings at the start, and also for the holidays in 1993. Sonic 3 wasn't ready.
No.
That came out the next February. So instead, there were games like Sonic Spinball and Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. And Spinball is the only released in-game appearance by the characters from the show. Like you'll see at the final boss fight, you'll free little sprites of Sally and Bunny and Rotor in there.
Sonic Spinball, not good. Not a good game. Terrible music. Also, Sonic's Pinball. I didn't know that until I was like 28 or something.
Yeah, I the less said about that game, the better. It's really, I know it has its fans, but I don't know how.
It's like the patting your head and rubbing your stomach of games where it's like, what if you were playing pinball, but also you were controlling a character at the same time? It doesn't work.
Yeah, Mean Bean Machine is at least like, well, it's Puyo Puyo. It's good.
Yeah.
You can't mess that up.
Yeah, yeah, Mean Bean Machine, that's great. Play that all day. But I feel like Sonic Spinball, it's like they were almost there with the idea of controlling Sonic as the ball in a pinball machine, which had actually kind of already been done by Sonic 2 in a much better way.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, Kirby's Pinball Land was a superior character-based pinball game of 1993.
Absolutely.
Very good.
And apparently I did see that there were like 2 canceled games that were planned to be made in the Sonic world. I saw a helpful article by Frank Cifaldi, that great historian, about how like there was one that was both made at STI, the US Sega side, that one was called Sonic 16, that you can see screenshots of him and the Sally from SatAM hanging out, and that got canceled. According to one source, it was Yuji Naka saying like, nah, no, cancel that. And same, there was a project called Sonic Mars that didn't even get to like demo stage that would have also included Sally in it as well. But yeah, so this debuts. It's a hit. The comic series is doing great for Archie as well. But it came at a weird point where ABC, they bought Deke, but then they got bought by Disney. And so Deke, it seems like, really got lost in the shuffle of what ABC planned to do with it. Though you can tell if you watch some season 2 episodes, you can tell they got some notes because there's some lighter episodes. Sally puts on some clothes.
Put some damn clothes on that thing.
Rotor gets a little bit of a redesign too, and there's even 2 episodes that are just 2 11-minute shorts that are a little sillier, like one where Antoine becomes like the leader of a biker
motorcycle gang. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you talk about Sally putting on clothes. I don't know if we could do a sidebar here, but the great furry influence this show had, especially the comics. Like watching, I mean, all animators are horny. I'm sorry, Ian, but they're all horny. And watching Sally again as an adult, I'm like, man, they knew what they were doing, because Cass Susie is talking in a kind of a porny voice, and then she's got an extra porny computer with her voice. So like everything she's saying is like, "Oh, Sonic, we're in trouble. Let me get out Nicole. Oh, you're in such big trouble." Like they're talking in these porny voices. It's crazy, and she's only wearing boots.
Well, and Buddy Rabbit too, a bit.
Buddy Rabbit has clothes on though,
Yeah,
but she's got
does.
cleavage.
She does.
Yeah.
She was doing that
Yeah,
way before Rogue the Bat was.
Yeah, I feel very exposed, but what you said about animators is absolutely true.
We're calling Ian out.
I feel like there was like, especially when you look at the furry culture of the time, where it was like very much like underground comic books and stuff. This was really a big mainstreaming of that, and I think like the comics would also take it a lot further too, and by hiring a lot of artists who were more adept at drawing like furry art, and so I feel like they knew what they were doing.
Right. I'm not making fun of furries. I love animal characters and things, but I feel like this was not an accident.
No, I think it's I think it could see them getting this by the censors of like, well, Sonic doesn't wear clothes other than shoes, so it's just normal for Sally to do the same thing. She just wears boots. Like, but Sonic is a round ball. Like, he's a balloon. Like, he's not a shapely character.
Yeah, as a rejoinder, I'm very pro furry. I think it's an amazing community, and also like in being in like the early Sonic online community at the time, there was a lot of like Venn diagram overlap with furry community at the time, and I think there is, at least from when I was in it, there is like a singular, sort of vibe that goes with both of them. But for sure, Sonic was for sure, Princess Sally, Bunny Rabbit were probably an awakening for many a furry on Saturday morning.
Yeah, like Rescue Rangers was off the air, and they're like, God, thank God I'm no longer horny on Saturday. Oh no, what's this? Who is this?
Yeah, I feel like there's a direct line from Disney's Robin Hood.
Oh God,
to Rescue Rangers, and then this.
yeah. I want to say I'm not making fun of furries. Actually, when people make fun of furries online, I'm like, is this 2004? What's going on here?
And LKKO has a great, pro furry episode.
I love that episode. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Look, I mean, I feel like, it's payback because, the early like edgelord internet jokes of making fun of furries, it's like they are the most harmful, nice people you'll ever meet online. They're just a little more truthful about what they like than the rest of us are.
That's very true.
But yeah, so that second season, they also though do get a bit more into the mythology. Like there's a 2-parter where they go back in time and show how Robotnik took over and replaced Sally's father, the king, and sent him into basically like, the negative zone or the phantom zone, where and that's where we get to hear Tim Curry as the king. And so season 2 has like a finale that is like a real finale. Like the Robotnik is seemingly just fully defeated. Mobius is freed. Sally and Sonic even share a celebratory kiss that's like, this is an end of a series kiss that you could only get to do in a last episode. And it ends though with a massive cliffhanger that shows that Snively survived, and he's going to be the lead villain in the next season, but he wasn't alone. And then there's a pair of glowing red eyes behind him. And the late Ben Hurst said himself, he's like, I think having that unresolved cliffhanger is partially why the online community was so rabid for Sonic AM.
If only Duckman fans were more rabid.
And of course, if you know about Sonic, those glowing red eyes were Ixis Naugus, the wizard, who would then be like a main villain for the comic, actually, around the same time. The comic actually kind of ended up sort of killing off Robotnik in a very similar fashion.
That's
and
right.
then brought that character in.
Yeah, these games have 0 wizards, but these cartoons are just crawling with wizards.
So many wizards.
Oh,
So many.
I was gonna say, like, I was a Fox Kids viewer at this time, and because they had like the edgier, more inventive cartoons. So I was like, what lured me over to ABC? So I was looking at what was on in the time slot on ABC and what was on the time slot in Fox Kids. So 9 a.m. was the Sonic slot, so not too early, not too late. What drew me over to ABC was 9 a.m. on Fox Kids was Tom and Jerry Kids. So like I was willing to abandon that.
I would change the channel for Tom and Jerry Kids. That was the one that would drive me away.
I have specific memories of only switching away from Fox Kids for Sonic. And I think maybe like I would catch like the first seconds of the Tom and Jerry Kids theme song because I like the theme song, and then be like, all right, I'm out of here.
And yeah, you know, that last shot of the red eyes, I couldn't believe when I saw the like, no, it was definitely supposed to be that August guy because, okay, it's late 1994. You've just played Sonic and Knuckles. Of course it's Knuckles, right? Like, especially the way the eyes are drawn with the nose and silhouette. It's exactly how Knuckles appears on the Sonic 3 box art. Like, how could you not have Knuckles on the show? Like, if there had been a season 3 with August revealed to be that guy, I would have been done with it. I'd be like, no Knuckles, no way. Like,
well, you recall earlier in season 2, in that Blast to the Past episode, one of the gates to go back in time is on a floating island. And I remember thinking for sure, that's right, Knuckles is finally going to show up. And then that does not happen. It makes me think that they had maybe some early planning documents for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and maybe we're like sort of doing the eyes and the floating island as kind of like, okay, well, maybe if this continues, we'll have an escape clause to incorporate this character.
Yeah, Ben Hurst was there. He wrote it. He knows what it was going to be, but it feels so like it would have been so much better to sell the show on like, you're going to get Knuckles in season 3 than like Naugus, the one-off villain from a flashback, is coming back. But but unfortunately there wasn't a third season. Why? Hurst, in his interviews, he brings up the cancellation as having to do with, one, they were often running against Power Rangers and that was killing them in the ratings. Also, that they get preempted by ABC Sports a lot, like for the Saturday Sports, which there were few bigger bummers to me as a child on Saturday morning when I was like, time for more cartoons. Golf? What? Like,
Imagine watching golf. Just think about it.
And also Hearst said it was because new management took over at ABC by 94. And, as we've said on many of these things, when new executives come on board, it's time to reshuffle the deck, and they want shows. They need to make space for their shows. Even a successful, if not the most successful, but a successful Sonic show is not as attractive to them. And then on top of that, they get bought by Disney, so they're going to start building the Disney One Saturday morning. There's no space for Sonic in that either.
Yeah, and I guess their third season would have been fall of 95, right?
Yeah.
So that's also Kids WB launching then too.
Yeah, I do recall, I think it was in the second season, either the lead-in or the show after was Free Willy. And I remember as a kid even just being embarrassed that it was on the television, like having to turn the channel really fast.
How dare you put a Free Willy show on at the same time as like Batman the Animated Series? That's but though also, by 1994, Sega of Japan was starting to express a bit more control over Sega of America. So personally, I think the Disney purchase and Sega of Japan's extended control, like Kalinsky talks about that in the Console Wars book too. I think maybe that is also what would have slowed down a new Sonic season being okayed to do. But and so yes, Ben Hurst was telling the fandom what we would do for season 3. The Archie comics continued and sort of took some of those plot lines and also morphed and changed into its own thing as well. In 1998, though, DiC gets hired by Sega to make a new show because they're priming for the launch of the Dreamcast. And they come up with a show that is about a Sonic triplets. Sonic has a brother and a sister, long lost triplets,
and all wedding after wedding after wedding on this show, all voiced by Jaleel White. I gotta say, I love the man. I love his work, but not cut out for doing this triple duty on the show. those voices are something else.
I mean, just focus on one character. That's what he's good at. But yeah, him playing Sonya in Manic the Hedgehog, like, and it also makes Sonic like royalty. Like he's the son of they're the triplets of the rightful queen of the planet Mobius. But like, so the whole new continuity, like that was a concept thought of before Hurst, Ali, and Jansen were hired on as writers, and Hurst would say like, we tried our best to bring in as much Saturday morning stuff as possible, but they had to produce so quickly, even by Deke standards, they had no time to do it.
Yeah,
and
Deke was doing some strange reboots around this time, because this time was also Extreme Ghostbusters in the late 90s
That's
as well.
right, yeah.
So yeah, strange revivals.
Yeah, the Sonic Underground is a real curiosity, because not only does it have like some odd SatAM elements in there, like Robotnik's design is exactly the same. It also adapted a few concepts from the comic series also at the same time.
Yeah.
By introducing Knuckles and his like grandfather. Not all of the echidnas from the comic, thank God, but at least like implying some of that stuff as well. And it was it's a very weird cartoon.
Yeah, and it came at the weirdest time too, where like by the time it came out, the Dreamcast launch is coming, and Sonic Adventure is going to rewrite all the rules on what Sonic media can be, and also like, so you have this new slimmed down Sonic Adventure style, but then at the same time, new episodes are airing of Sonic Underground where he is more of his, balloon animal type look. And it was just a lot of like dissonance in what was being marketed. You can see why Underground, like I didn't know about Underground until I was watching it in reruns on like USA or something.
Same here, yeah.
Sega was notoriously not good at kind of sharing info. I remember reading that one of the comic artists at the time, Patrick Speziente, had to play Sonic Adventure, the preview version, in Japanese and tape the game and hand that to the artists for the comic book so that it would match up when they eventually hit press time. And it's like, couldn't they get some of this stuff from Sega themselves? But I don't think Sega was like coordinating that stuff.
So after Underground, Ben Hurst, and he was pushing and talked pretty publicly about pitches he made to try to make more SatAM. It was his favorite series too. And, Jaleel White was always positive about wanting to resume the role. If asked about it, he'd be like, yeah, I'd like to do it again. But Deke went through a lot, and its catalog has been owned by like 5 different companies over time. I believe the current owner of it is a company called Wild Brain.
Okay,
so
it left the French behind?
I think so.
Is it still Cookie Jar Entertainment?
No, Cookie Jar got bought by DHX, which was then turned into Wild Brain.
I gotta feel like this Deke catalog must be cheap then, despite all the shows they made.
I think for all of the Deke shows, though, other than like Inspector Gadget and a couple others that they own the rights to, if you want to re-release it, you got to work with the licensor too. So even if you own the catalog, you can't really sell Sonic cartoons unless Sega agrees to it. But Sega usually does agree.
I'm surprised those Mario shows get out then, because they are not, they make the source material look bad. They reflect poorly on the IP. Like, I don't know who's signing off on those every time they come out on DVD.
Yeah, I wonder. But Sonic did get a DVD, though now it's out of print and people want like literally hundreds of dollars for it on Amazon, which good luck for that, buddy. But
did you find the stuff about Ben Hurst's pitch for the Sonic movie?
I saw that a little bit. He had a pitch that it was a bit SatAM, his pitch for a Sonic movie years before the movie that we saw started coming together.
Yeah, it's a super interesting story. Like a lot of like interesting backstabbing as well.
Yeah, he was having some troubles with the Archie writer of Sonic at the time, I believe. That caused that pitch to fall through. It did sound a bit messy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now these days, like Sega doesn't seem to care too much about Saturday AM. Like they're not withholding it. Like you can watch it on streaming services. It's available, but it's not out there. Like I don't think they want to make more of it. Like especially in the early 2000s, Sega ended up being owned by the same company as TMS, so they got the Sonic X show.
Right. And then Sonic Boom after that.
And then Sonic Boom to sell to the U.S. market, which we had on one of the writers from that, Alan Denton. That was a good time. But so SatAM is like 5 or 6 iterations of just cartoon Sonic ago. And it's beloved by the people who love it, including a small dedicated group of online people trying to crowdsource, fan animation of a 3rd season based on the concepts that are out there, which I wish them luck. Like good luck to all of you guys on the season 3 stuff.
One thing I wanted to bring up that I just remembered was, I don't know if anyone played this game for the DS, Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood.
Oh, yes.
The BioWare Sonic RPG. I only played a tiny bit of it. I think it's super overrated, but it has a bit of the Saturday morning stink on it.
Well, yeah, and that game is super weird because they clearly cribbed a lot of the story for it from the comics. But this is getting into that like legal headache. But from what I can tell, Archie did not really sign paperwork with any of their artists. So it was up in the air how much of it was work for hire and how much wasn't. And I think that game was actually one of the straws that broke the camel's back, because that game's story, which I've never played that whole game, but the game's story is very reminiscent of stuff that happened in the comic, and then there were lawsuits and all kinds of stuff. And I think this is what eventually led to Sega calling it quits on these SatAM characters, because at some point I think they didn't know where the contracts began or ended, so they just cut their losses.
That does really complicate adding like how to make new. It's one thing to sell old stuff, but to make new stuff with those things, like companies like to know what they own and what they don't, and just for like to make themselves safe from lawsuits, really. Like, so I understand, like, why take the risk on doing a new story with Sally Acorn when like you've got Amy Rose? Just do that story with Amy Rose,
Yeah, I think, and for a while, like when I was in the fandom, I remember the fans really, really wanted the cartoon or comic characters to make an appearance in the game somehow. But I think this legal nightmare sort of stopped that from happening. Though, luckily now for kids who are fans of like the Sonic IDW comic that recently started, like it seems like that comic has been future-proofed, and I think those characters have even started showing up in the Sonic mobile games and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Yeah, that's nice. I think the legacy of the Saturday morning characters is, when Sonic says Robotnik or Chili Dog or whatever in things or whenever when he's played with like a nasal voice, or thirsty artists making OC, that's how the legacy lives on.
Absolutely.
But okay, that's the history of Sonic Saturday Morning. When we come back, we are going to talk about the episode Super Sonic.
After these messages, be right back.
No time to waste.
Here comes the Hedgehog.
He's on the case.
Now I have you, Hedgehog.
Juice time.
More Sonic the Hedgehog coming up here on ABC.
Welcome to the break, everybody. It's Henry Gilbert, the 17th fastest podcaster alive.
Hey, everybody, it's Bob Mackey. I'm not one of Sonic's shitty friends, although I'd like to be.
And we hope that we're your good friends and that you guys are enjoying this week's episode. And a big thank you to our guest, Ian Jones-Quartey. It was always fun to have him back, especially for his insight in as a Super Sonic fan and as a person who has literally written jokes for Sonic the Hedgehog to say. And, we're only able to do awesome podcasts like this one with cool guests because of the support of listeners like you, though not you because you're hearing this ad, which means you're not a supporter yet, at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
That's right. If you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and sign up at the $5 level, you'll get all of these podcasts 1 week at a time and ad-free, and also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes all the things we've done on Patreon since we started in the summer of 2017. That is 3+ years of bonus podcasts. That includes all of our limited miniseries like Talking Critic, Talking of the Hill, Talking Futurama, Talking Mission Hill, and very soon we'll be doing the upcoming Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 2, only on Patreon, along with all the other episodes of Talking Futurama. And also there's things on there like interviews and end-of-season wrap-ups and deleted scene specials for Talking Simpsons. There's so much going on that you're missing out on if you're not a patron. And if you sign up for the $10 level, you'll get all that stuff plus one mega-long podcast once a month, only for patrons of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Why, you're referring to the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. If you enjoy this one, but wish we talk about a feature film in the same dense conversation, why, then you'd like to hear our What a Cartoon Movie podcast each month, where we cover a different animated feature film in this same style. This month, it's going to be the direct-to-video Disney classic Return of Jafar, the one that started it all. And before that, why, we've done 1995's Ghost in the Shell, Space Jam, Aladdin the Original, a Goofy movie, Akira. So many classics that you are going to want to listen to, and you can have over 100 hours of What a Cartoon Movie awesomeness, and a new one each month if you are a $10 subscriber at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. I mean, in the free feed that you're listening to now, you can hear the extended preview of each movie, but you can only hear the entire thing in full if you're a subscriber at $10 a month at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never signed up for Patreon before, it's so easy to do. And once you do sign up, you're given a code that you have access to at all times. And if you want to hear a bonus podcast, you just drop that code into whatever you use to listen to the podcast. And that way you can fit our bonus podcast in next to all of your free podcasts in your podcasting lifestyle. And if you don't want to do that, there is also a Patreon app for any smart device. It's very easy to use, but either way, it is so easy to access all the bonus podcasts waiting for you at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So thank you guys so much for listening. Let's return with our guest Ian Jones-Quartey and more talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. So grab your juice and grab your jam.
Sonic the Hedgehog here. Who's sharper than me? No one. Who's faster than me? No one. Who's better than me? No one. Sonic the Hedgehog, just the way you like me. Premiering today on ABC.
Back to the source.
The streak speeds by. Sonic the Hedgehog, too fast for the naked eye. Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic, he can really move. Sonic, he's got an attitude. Sonic, he's the fastest thing alive. Look out when he storms through. Sonic the Hedgehog, don't doubt what he can do. Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic, he can really move. Sonic, he's got an attitude. Sonic, he's the fastest thing alive. He's the fastest thing alive. He's the fastest thing alive.
Okay, so we are back with Supersonic, the episode, which was the first one that aired on ABC. And I also wanted to do this one because it was pretty awesome that some person on YouTube uploaded the full premiere broadcast of this from ABC. So you get the classic commercials with it and the after these messages, we'll be right back.
I had some intense
with Mr. Bumpy.
Oh yeah, from Bump
Yeah,
in the Night.
That's right.
I had some intense nostalgia over the Lego sets advertised because they were the Knights sets, like the medieval Knights. Apparently they were only made for like 2 years, but those are the only Legos I had, basically.
Wow.
That was really cool to see. I think that was like pre like the Lego Mania era. But yeah, it was awesome seeing that.
Every Lego set now has to be a movie thing now. It can't just be like, Robin Hood or whatever. The one that warmed me the most was seeing the commercial for the amazing fruit gummy bears.
Yeah.
Amazing
Oh,
fruit.
yeah.
Yeah.
I did like how they were trying to make frosted mini wheats cool.
Oh,
It's like
Yes.
my parents think I'm learning, but I'm eating frosted mini wheats.
Truly amazing.
Kix did better with those kind of ad campaigns.
You want the cereal your mom recommends.
One of the commercials that really sent me back was there was a SpaghettiOs one where the O is like distracting kids in class.
Oh,
And it's,
yeah.
like, really trying to get us to believe that the SpaghettiOs O is like a cool character.
Yeah, the kids are like, there he is. He's here.
He's making fun of our coach. I wish I could do that. So you get a real taste of how it aired, including you get to hear the worst version of Fastest Thing Alive that came with the original airing.
Oh, right.
Yes.
The one that's on the DVD is much better. The end in the second season by the band Noisy Neighbors. They perform it. Composed by Michael Tavera. He was the main credit composer for the whole season. The Fastest Thing Alive it's one of my favorite like 90s openings of stuff.
Yeah, very catchy.
And just he's the fastest thing alive. He can really move. All the things you need to know about Sonic the Hedgehog.
He's got an attitude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I can agree with you in the this feels like a pilot film in a way, the opening. It's very similar to the Batman the Animated Series opening, which, we know is based off of a pilot film. But it's got like that same kind of feel where it's like, this is a mini adventure that just sets the stage for what the show can accomplish. And the animation is pretty good on opening.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was like a pilot reel, like a pilot pitch, because the animation is always much better in those. And also it depicts a world that's different than the show that we see, in which there are other characters outside of the freedom fighters, or terrorists as I call them.
I was recently playing, this will be several months out of date, but I was recently playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and my partner Rebecca was like, oh, is this why you love crack teams of freedom fighters who are like fighting against the man? I'm like, yes, it was Avalanche and the freedom fighters from Sonic SatAM.
The whole opening is basically the attack on the Mako factory. Like it's Sonic's fighting
true,
robots
yeah.
while she sets up a timed explosion on the thing. And I also like that you can see in the background that the explosion wasn't just to blow things up, it was to start the river moving again. You see the water start flowing towards Knothole.
But there's an entire population of characters like cheering them on, where I haven't rewatched the entire series, but do we ever meet like a city of people? It feels like they're just like little tiny spatterings of people around, just like huddled in fear.
You meet other animal friends in Knothole, like who are like one-off characters,
Right.
Yeah, the same thing kind of happened in the comics too, where it's like, oh, it's just this one group of characters hiding away, but eventually they start implying that it's a whole city of characters, and then they're sometimes around when you need them, but then they're not there when they're not. It's very confusing.
I knew watching a few SatAMs that where if a character who you'd never seen before goes on a mission with them, they're toast. Like they're the red shirts of the show.
Absolutely.
They're all like, "Oh, thanks for coming, Catman. Everything's gonna be good now." He's going to be robotized any second after that. I wonder who animated the opening. I wonder if it was SatAM or Millimetros. It has a feel more of European animation to me than Korean, I think, or at least the way the characters move with like a certain weight to them or something.
Fluidity. Like the Sally swinging on the rope is what I'll remember from that opening, just in my head.
Yeah, it's really hard to know. I wish I could ID where it came from, but yeah, you have to wonder if the SatAM Millimetros divide of why there were two shows is because one of them did most of the pre-production and then shipped to the other, or if they did like even splits of like one did one segment and one did another. Honestly, I don't really know.
Also, the opening sets up the rule about Sonic's rings, which as a kid you need to know, because a thing that did bug me in watching this even the first time was like, from playing the games, I know Sonic is not scared of any robot because he can jump on them and immediately kill them. And so in this show, Sonic needs one power ring to be able to do any of his kind of Sonic-y things. The rest of the time, he's a pretty fast guy who is scared of being hurt.
So it's like the Game Gear games when you get hurt, only one ring comes out no matter how many you're carrying.
Yeah, I think that was probably a unique problem that they had to solve, of like how to incorporate rings into the story. And, I think they did the best they could.
Yeah. Mario doesn't eat power mushrooms all that much in the Deke Mario show. So.
No, and I remember they have to wait for the ring to come out of the lake or whatever. Like the rings come out every so often. That's when they can use them.
And I think his Uncle Chuck is partially involved in making it too. I think, or that was in the pilot version anyway. I can't remember if that got dropped in later ones, but I like
the Lake of Rings itself.
Okay, yeah. And his robot Uncle Chuck, that's he's not in this episode. He hasn't been freed yet, but I like his robot uncle too. The episode begins with Rotor working on, I always want to call him Boomer because he was Boomer in all the comics I read, but it's Rotor. He's working on building a water mill kind of wheel to power something. And he's also being helped by Bunny Rabbit, who's doing all the heavy lifting, which I had this question about Antoine, but it extends to Bunny Rabbit as well. So on Mobius, there were equivalents of the American South and France for those dialects.
Yeah, that's weird.
I remember later on the comics solves this by introducing the idea that Mobius is a post-apocalyptic Earth.
Oh.
And it starts to explain why there are regional dialects for all of the characters.
And it's really weird that her name is Bunny Rabbit, and then later she became part Rabbot. So that's pretty ironic that your name is that and you become that.
I love that she's a half robotized character, and that she also she's the biggest badass on the team. Really, she kicks way more butt in this episode than Sonic does.
Christine Cavanaugh, great portrayal of this character. I feel like this is what Marty Sherman would be like if it was Jay and Alice's kid.
I also think that what we were talking about before about the show having this open-ended lore, Bunny is like a sublime example of that. You see the character, she has a backstory. Something happened to her, but they're not talking about it. So it as a kid, it kind of drives you nuts. What happened to her and why?
Yeah, and characters like her and Uncle Chuck, and just the fate of these characters, I didn't know what to call at the time, but there's a little hint of body horror in this series. You'll get turned into a robot, your mind will be erased, you'll just be this disgusting pile of metal, and that's it for you.
Absolutely.
And there's more tragedy with the rules of robotization in this world than in the video games. You get in the first games you get the satisfaction at the end of a stage. You hop on the plunger and it frees all the cute little birds and
they're called
squirrels.
flickies.
Sorry, the flickies.
The flickies.
But in this show, it seems to imply that if you killed a robot, it doesn't fix them. You can't just destroy their outer casing.
It's really weird because Sonic's friends, they kind of match up to the animal friends that exist in the Sonic games. That there's Flicky, Pecky, Cucky, Rocky, etc. Sally Acorn is kind of Ricky in a way.
Mm-hmm.
The squirrel one. It's very strange.
Wow, I never thought of that. They made characters out of the animals that escape from those capsules at the end of every level. That's crazy.
Yeah, when you look at the Bible, you can kind of see the evolution of that, because the early ones with Porker Lewis and whatnot, they transliterated all of the animal friends into characters, and then SatAM is almost like they took that and in a telephone game turned those into characters. And so they all kind of match up in a weird way.
And so in our first clip here, as they're trying to fix their new water wheel, Sally is asking her robotic assistant Nicole, which they're both voiced by Kath Soucie, but she does a really good job of talking to herself here. But in a mix, it also is a bit like the Star Trek computer, I think. But yes, we get our first scene with Sonic as well.
Nicole, search databank for entry
Water wheel. One entry qualifies, Sally. What? Nicole, a water wheel. One entry qualifies. No, I was afraid of this.
Somebody's got that old chili dog feeling again.
No, Sonic. Nicole is malfunctioning.
A chili dog is no malfunction, Sarah.
Nicole, run diagnostic level 4B. Running. Sub microprocessor chip 16 has a fatal error.
Is that bad?
I forgot that chili dogs are in this continuity as well.
Yeah, I was really glad we got a chili dog reference in this episode. That did make me ask questions that Wikipedia's could not answer for me, but like, okay, are these chili dogs from vegetable protein? If not, what are they made out of in this animal world?
Could there be processed meats in this world? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never really fully explain that, especially because, you know, if there's a character named Porker Lewis who's a pig, what are we doing here? I guess there's no cows yet in the world, so maybe that.
I mean,
maybe it's all beef.
I will say, to honor Sonic, I did have chili dogs for 4th of July recently, and
nice.
I put on the video of him singing the national anthem. It was perfect.
The 4Kids national anthem. That's class.
All your favorites sing the song.
I love that video.
Yeah, the chili dog stuff, like when they finally put it in the video games, that was satisfying to me because, you know, you could, in articles I would write like Sonic and his chili dogs, and I'd have coworkers at the video game website go like, that's from the dumb cartoon. Sonic doesn't eat chili dogs. Like, and that's why when Sonic Generations came out, at his party, they give him like a birthday chili dog instead of a cake. I was like, it's canon now. All right.
Yeah, canonizing chili dogs, very, very important step.
Also, one of the first times I met you, Ian, was at a Sonic celebration where many a free chili dog was eaten that night.
That's right. Right. Was that the unveiling of Sonic Mania?
Yep.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was, actually, we're recording this in July. It's actually close to the anniversary of that because that was at Comic-Con in San Diego that year.
That was really fun. Again, like in that crowd was that like weird broken fan base, because I think a lot of people in the crowd were like, I want Sonic Adventure 3. And then when Sonic Mania was unleashed, I think it confused many.
Yes, yeah, I was among the folks there, and I definitely could feel the people my age were kind of like, awesome, more 16-bit Sonic and all that style. But the folks who knew every word to Set Me Free,
Escape from the City?
Yes, people who knew all the words to that, I was like, hey, I guess you guys probably aren't as satisfied by Sonic Mania.
Oh, they know all the Sonic R songs too.
Oh, God. But yeah, I ate many a free chili dog that night. It was a good time. Which, like, at San Diego Comic-Con, you eat when you can, and so I appreciated every free meal. But yeah, so I also like Sonic's kind of dumb reply of like, "Is that bad?" to a failure. It shows that like Sonic's this great hero, but Sally compliments him as the kind of better planner and leader figure. Sally does get the damsel in distress role more times than she probably should, but they mostly write her as a good leader and the real leader of the Freedom Fighters.
I was surprised by her competence in this for a 1993 cartoon. She does get damseled eventually, but she is spearheading a lot of the action here.
So I'm exhuming forum drama from 2 decades ago.
Ooh.
But I remember, at the time in the Sonic fandom, there was a huge schism of people who were SatAM and Archie fans and people who were Sega Sonic fans. And I remember a lot of the Sega Sonic fans were detractors of this show because Sally really was the main character. It felt like it was Sally's story more than it was about Sonic. You know, and I remember that being like a huge topic of debate.
Yeah, I think I can see their point, because in this episode I was watching it, I did enjoy it, but I was like, Sonic is just the worst character in this bunch. I mean, he just shows up, it doesn't listen to anybody, and has fun action scenes, but Sally has like the most, I guess, dramatic through line through the series, and is like the most driven character. And Sonic, he's got the Han Solo thing going on, but Han Solo is also not the main character of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of the same sort of issue or quote unquote problem that like a lot of James Bond movies have, which is that this character is unflappable and great in every way, and they really can't arc or change. So it has to be the characters around them that do most of the dramatic heavy lifting. Like outside of the recent Casino Royale, you don't really ever get to see like an arc for the James Bond character. And Sonic is kind of like that. And I think a lot of that is by design. You know, famously, Sega did have embargoes on Sonic crying too much or losing in like different Sonic media.
Oh, okay. I forgot those kind of rules they were dealing with. Most of the episodes are about Sally going like, I have to get my dad, or I have to free this place, or all these things. Like, it is her story in Sonic. Sonic's arc, you do get the bit with his Uncle Chuck, but it's more like a junior version of Sally searching for her dad, you know?
Yeah, I can see, I guess I can see the criticism. I just remember at the time it was very contentious, the fans who hated this version of Sonic.
I mean, I like Sonic as part of an ensemble. Like, if also in the show, if you make Sonic too good at it, why do you have any other freedom fighters? Sonic can just do it all, you know? And too, I also am very much like, my pairing for Sonic, my OTP is Sally. Like, Sally is who he should be with. To me, like, they're around the same age, they have all this history together, and like, I think it's just Amy Rose is just no. I'm just against Amy Rose being she should be her own person, not like a fawning fangirl for Sonic.
Amy Rose is kind of like a sexist character too to begin with, when Sally kind of isn't.
Yeah. Though they've changed Amy a bit over time.
I'm just thinking about her original portrayal where it's just like, I like shopping and boys.
Yeah.
Speaking of like all the like weirdness of the franchise, as I recall, like when I first got Sonic CD, in the manual for that, they call Amy Rose as a name didn't exist. They called her Sally Acorn in that manual.
Oh.
I think as like a way to like match things up.
Yeah.
They didn't change any of the character sprites though, but I remember reading the manual and being like kind of like confused and blown away by that.
Well, because Amy Rose too, like, if you played Sonic CD, you knew her before Sonic Adventure, or if you played I definitely remember seeing her in like Sonic Drift 2. I played that a bit on my Game Gear, but she was kind of a stranger to me until she really got changed up and aged up a little bit in Sonic Adventure.
In one of the best issues of the comics, 25, they actually introduce Amy Rose and just say, oh, she's Sonic's biggest fan, and create her as a completely separate character from Sally. So that was where I knew her from the most.
And so they head off to Robotropolis to try to find some new parts for the Nicole AI. And I kind of like how they walk around Robotropolis, and you get a real sense of this like sad machine city. It's well designed.
It's pretty dark for a 9 a.m. Saturday show.
Yeah, well, and also because the show has to be like realer than Adventures, Sonic usually on Adventures has on a backpack because he either takes things out of it or puts things in it. And unlike, in Adventures, he just pulls something out from behind his back like a classic cartoon character. But here, it's Sonic always being naked. You need to give him a backpack for him to realistically carry things anywhere.
I saw a handwritten note on the story Bible, the first page, like, should Sonic have a backpack? Question mark. So they were thinking about it.
And the background art for Robotropolis is awesome. It's just really cool. It's very like, it's very impressive, and yeah, it's got that Blade Runner-y kind of feel.
Yeah, and as far as the mood it sets, it's grounded and moodier. Like it's definitely darker than what most Saturday morning was at the time, especially on ABC. And so yeah, but then it also, again, it bugs me. It still bugs me even now seeing when Sonic is scared of robots. He's like, well, he's not. Okay, he's not scared of them. He kind of taunts them.
You take that back.
And chase away. But the Sonic I know would just jump on those Ed 209s and blow them up.
Yeah.
It is very strange, but I guess in trying to, I mean, it's extrapolating so much from the games and trying to make it realistic, so I guess they got to do what they got to do.
Yeah, at some point I was like, well, I guess his spines are just sort of like a regular hedgehog and they're not going to burst through metal. But then later he burrows through like a cave wall.
Yes.
So
yeah, Sally sneaks in while Sonic distracts him. I like their cool teamwork. And I also like that she even gets to have some kind of like funny lines. Like Kath Soucie, she gets a lot more in this role than she does in some of the other stuff she was working in at the time. Like in this quick little clip here.
I hate when they do that. Come on, Sal, where you at? Ah, don't they ever get tired? Whoa!
I also just love that. Whoa! They replay that like 3 times in this episode.
it's a good whoa.
Yeah, Kath and Jaleel, their voices really bounce off of each other well.
And though Jaleel had in that extra I watched from the DVD, he admitted, he's like, yeah, I was being not just the star of Family Matters, but his mother was very strict on, like, you have to do the teaching, like you can't just blow off your TV star kid classes, you have to do it. So they fit in the recordings around that schedule. Everybody else apparently did record together when they do it, but he had to do it solo.
He had to learn state capitals. What do you want? I have to say, I figured it out, like, why I think her voice is porny, because it's the same voice she used for Lola Bunny.
Wow, you're right.
We just did Space Jam.
It's very similar.
She's two sides of the horniest furry characters.
I can't believe there's...
you need a sexy furry character. You know where to go.
She's great. She's really great. You had her on an episode of OKKO as well.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, she played a character for us in the episode where Enid gets 3 cool mascot platformer pals, and she was super sweet and a very nice person to work with.
That's I love that episode. That's all the cool people and Rad trying to be as cool as them and being rejected. It's God, what a funny episode. But yeah, the Sonic and Sally, they get they get split up, and they're being chased by the SWAT bots, which I like their design, though. They do remind me of the She-Ra henchmen, the Horde troopers from classic She-Ra. But the Stormtroopers are nice. But they're the type of enemy Sonic didn't face in the video games. These humanoid type shapes. Too.
Yeah, all the critters or all the enemies were robot versions of animals, right?
Yeah,
for the most part. No, almost entirely. Like Robotnik was the sole human in the world.
Later on, like in the modern games, they would introduce the like egg pawn, who are kind of like humanoid robot types. But until then, yeah, there wasn't anything like this except for like egg robos or what have you.
And then as they're escaping, they head into straight out of the Planet of the Apes, the Forbidden Zone. And this is when Sally runs in. While she's running in there, we get our first shot of Robotnik in the episode, which this is, again, just great work by Cummings here.
Send more hover units, Snively.
Yes, sir, Dr. Robotnik.
I want the princess.
I really don't know, sir. I'll find out.
Charlie Adler doing
Good
it.
old Charlie Adler.
Yeah. Such a Charlie Adler voice.
Snively is such a broad character, like the annoying sidekick guy to the villain, but Adler plays him so great with I just love his passive aggressiveness, and more than the idea of like Naugus could be there. I would have wanted to see a season 3 just so Adler could play Snively as the lead villain. Like you get a little taste of that in that teaser.
Season 3, The Rise of Snively.
Yeah. So Sally is saved by the Guardian, who definitely has a bit of like Obi-Wan Kenobi vibes, I guess, to him. There's just a lot of space wizardry in here. Sonic then saves Sally, and they just kind of, you don't even see them run away. It's just, cut back to Knothole. They're hanging out. And that's when they explain who the Guardian is. This complicated thing about how there was a super evil wizard who now went to sleep and is being guarded by them. But the Forbidden Zone, the bombed out city, like that does lend more to the idea that it is a post-apocalyptic world too.
That was crawling with wizards.
Yes. Yeah.
It's super weird to have humanoid characters so heavily in Sonic's world. This was before we had seen anything like that. Definitely before I'd seen like the anime Sonic movie, which also has humanoid characters in it. But if you look at the Bible, you can see that there were always intended to be like multiple human characters. They mention a guy named Nate Morgan, who is supposed to be like a human dude who is like in Knothole, one of like the good guys. And I guess he didn't end up in the show, but they eventually brought him into the comics also.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he's like the wise old man who's like he had real like kind of Dr. Light to Dr. Wily kind of vibes from what
Absolutely.
But yeah, cyberpunk, because there's these like techno wizards.
Yes, yeah.
With like glowing crystal computers. It's kind of like it's interesting, I'll say.
Yeah, hearing a wizard demand his computer back is pretty funny.
I like that idea.
Fun cross-cutting back and forth between at least that's a good way of handling the exposition of explaining who Lazar is. You have Sally talking about who Lazar was, and then Snively telling Robotnik about it, and Robotnik again, he's very excited to learn he can show off how evil he is. He's like, really evil? Like again, pretty great.
Yes, his computer is full of spells.
Yes, yeah.
I guess we weren't really sure what computers were doing in 1993. Like, I guess they could be full of magic.
Sure. And so yes, as Sonic hears about that computer full of magic, he has plans of his own.
Forget it, Sonic. It's too risky.
Come on, Sal. Lazar's magic spells could really kick some Robotnik tail.
But you might wake Lazar.
What? Faster than lightning, quieter than a mouse. I'm there and back before you know I'm even gone.
Will you be serious for a minute?
30 seconds is my limit.
One day you'll learn that speed is no substitute for common sense.
Time's up. Snooze, you lose. Gotta cruise.
Be careful, Sonic.
It's magic time!
Boys.
He is just spouting out catchphrases left and right, rhyming them.
Yeah, Jalil's delivery, it absolutely carries the show. Similar to how he carried all of Family Matters on his back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like there was, I don't think there was a writer's room for this show, but it's just like, what should Sonic say when he leaves? How about this? How about that? Oh, how about all three things?
Yes.
He could say all three things.
It's magic. Yeah, well, and also in this show, I forgot how many times he says juice. Like, he says juice. They really wanted juice to be his catchphrase.
Show is sponsored by the Juice Council.
I feel like there was an episode in season 2 where he's even like, my code name is Juice.
This was right before the O.J. Simpson trial, by the way.
That's true, yeah. And that would have I'm glad it didn't catch on as his catchphrase. It would have been canceled anyway. I also like him being, that's him tapping his foot like, I'm tired of standing still kind of Sonic that does feel like the spirit of the games, too.
Yeah, Sonic is a little bit of a rebel here. He's like not listening to Sally. He's going off on his own, doing his own thing.
Mm-hmm. And also be like, 30 seconds is my limit. I'm being serious. I love that too. But it also tells him like, well, this is her saying it's not always good for you to be the cool guy, Sonic. Sometimes you need to follow orders. Though that's her kind of being like his manager.
That's true.
For sure.
As Sally goes over that with Sonic, Robotnik is ready for a meeting and is ready to tell the Guardian about how cool and evil he is.
I found him, Dr. Robotnik.
Then where is he?
Well, he was right.
Why have you summoned me? A little business proposition, my dear Guardian. One you might find rewarding. I have no use for riches. Well, another kind of deal then. I want the location of Lazar's lair. Name your price. You intend harm to my master. Oh, you wound me, dear Guardian. I merely want to wake the Grand Wizard and honor his evilness. We have much in common. Yes, I can see that.
I like it's different for Robotnik to be played like he's trying to be nice to somebody or make a deal with somebody. And that he's so proud of how evil he is too. He's like, oh, I'm pretty evil.
I guess one thing they don't explain, or maybe I was my brain wasn't working fast enough to keep up with this kid's show, but this wizard is not evil. Or like rumors spread about the wizard to keep people away from him or something.
Well, he was evil.
Okay,
he was evil.
He was
at one
evil.
Time. Yeah, and the Guardian is guarding him to prevent bad people from getting. Well,
I thought the computer was evil.
Well, the computer's used for evil, but Lazar was evil.
Okay, all right.
So the Guardian seems ambivalent because he's not. When he finds out an evil guy wants the supercomputer, he should just kill Robotnik right there. If he's like, oh, okay, time for some laser eyes on you, buddy. But he kind of just tells Robotnik where to go.
It's nice that in the grand scheme of the plot of this cartoon, none of this is important.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Ultimately.
Well, also, this bit here of Robotnik going to this old base and sending the SWAT bot to his death at the opening, like, this reminds me a bit of Aladdin, too.
I was thinking the exact same thing, and I think the timelines match up where they were inspired by Aladdin. Yeah. Because it is the Cave of Wonders, right?
It really feels like the Cave of Wonders.
Yeah, it even eats the first guy they send in.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
Because Aladdin would have been 92, and this came out in 93, so timeline syncs up. But I mean, hey, it was a great movie. We should all be inspired by it. But and then there's a surprising lack of dialogue for a while as Robotnik just walks through the cave kind of quietly, and then Sonic arrives, and it's a fun mix of like Robotnik just kind of sauntering through the place while Sonic has to constantly avoid death traps. This is also where he says it's juice and jam time. Though these death traps, they feel very video game level, except he constantly does stuff you can't do in the games. Like
clip through them?
Yeah. Or like there's a spiked ball coming at him. He's like, well, I'll just stand on the ball and jump to the other thing. Like, well, you can't do that in a game, Sonic.
Yeah, look, he's basically indestructible, so,
yeah,
whatever he wants to do.
You can touch no part of this trap in a game, and your rings go flying everywhere.
And this is also where we hear several more whoas as he's running around. And so as Sonic is avoiding all these attacks, Robotnik just kind of walks up to the evil mage and just like takes it, which again is as what Lazar says at the end of the episode about like, I have to protect this. It's like, well, you didn't do a very good job of it.
I guess that's why they shrink that cave down into nothing. It goes underwater. And
there's also a good like commercial break peril thing of Sonic looking at death traps and explaining what they are. And it's like, what's a hedgehog to do?
This is only vaguely related, but it reminded me of how in the game the manual explained away bugs by saying they're Dr. Robotnik's deadly speed traps, where it's a trap. If Sonic is flashing, don't let him travel too quickly, or you might get in a trap you can't escape unless by resetting the game.
Oh no, Dr. Robotnik violated your warranty. That villain.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I forgot. I didn't know that about the manual.
There was
Yeah, I
something
think
like
that was in the Sonic 3 manual, I'm pretty sure.
there was something like that in the Final Fantasy II American release. Sorry, it's Final Fantasy IV, but it came over here as Final Fantasy II. Got that out of the way. Where if you went in and out of a room a certain number of times, like your game would be corrupted or your save would be erased. They called it like Ogopogo's curse. Like, don't go in and out of the same room this many times.
Amazing.
It's a bug we couldn't fix, but it's part of the lore now.
And so Sonic is stuck in a corner with 3 death traps. And then he again does a thing of like, oh, well, how's he going to get out of it? And the answer is he will dig a hole in a wall and get away from it, which is kind of a cop out, I think. But I guess I think of it as the equivalent of a secret level exit. Let's call it that.
He had a game genie.
And so as Sonic is avoiding all of these death traps, we then get a real, like, where's Poochie kind of moment here as we check in on the other freedom fighters.
Cool. Now tighten that screw, Bunny.
Sally, screwdriver, please. My, I do declare, Sally, girl, your mind is anywhere but.
I'm sorry. I'm worried about Sonic. If he wakes Lazar...
Now, don't worry yourself none. That little sugar hog is too quick for some sleepy old wizard.
I hope you're right, Bunny.
That's so great.
Yeah.
Also, I love just like, how would a Southern person refer to a wizard? Let's figure it out. That sleepy old wizard ain't nothing, Shug.
I wonder if a little bit she's inspired by Rogue from the X-Men too.
Could be.
I feel like that's in there for sure.
It's a little too early, but I wish I could say she was inspired by Park Overall in The Critic.
Oh, yeah.
Being on that show. This is like a year before she was on that.
But yeah, that definitely is the, like, when Poochie's not there, where's Poochie? Like that Sally doesn't have a moment away from Sonic. She's like, well, Sonic isn't here. Wonder what he's up to.
I'm not important.
I mean, honestly, like, it is what the audience is thinking. It's like, why are we cutting to this water wheel? Please, please cut back to something exciting.
Well, yeah, I mean, turning wrenches on a water wheel is not very exciting to watch. Little old sugar hog. That's such a fun
Little old sugar hog.
So Sonic then heads to the final death trap in front of the room, where there's a bunch of lasers, and I do like, again, his line, like, barbecued hedgehog, isn't that my idea of fun? Another great line. And
but then he easily gets past this, right?
Yeah, which, if this were a stage in a 2D video game, you can't just run on the wall and get around it, but whatever.
That's what made the later games boring, because you just held the control stick in one direction as things happened around you.
Yeah. But hey, they were ahead of the curve on the run towards the camera while things happen games.
We call that bandicooting.
Yeah.
That Bandicoot, he isn't. Sonic's failure on the Saturn left the space open for Crash Bandicoot to come in, you know?
Well, Crash Bandicoot. Oh, sorry, Ian.
Oh, no, I was probably going to mention the same thing, how Crash started as the Sonic's butt game.
Yes. Yeah.
You're just following him. But also, another weird Bandicoot related thing is, I was looking at the credits for this, and I noticed that Charles Zembelis, the designer of Crash Bandicoot, worked on this show as a storyboard revisionist.
Wow.
Whoa, I did not know that.
I was going to bring up how Crash Bandicoot, they just discovered this somewhat recently in history, but there's like a 2D animated segment that feels like it was a pilot for a show.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim Cummings, I believe, sings a song about him.
Right.
He does. The song is hilarious.
That's right up there with the Bubsy pilot. And
At least there's only 2 minutes of the Crash pilot.
Yeah, God. Well, if Sonic isn't annoying enough for you, you watch Bubsy. It's 10. But so Robotnik gets the evil robot computer wizard thing, and it's also a strange choice that the machine, the evil AI, is also voiced by Jim Cummings. Like it's just like how Nicole is voiced by Kath Soucie, so it's characters talking to AI that kind of sound like them, but.
Gotta keep those voice counts down.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I guess the Guardian was too busy dealing with Sonic, so he can't really handle more than one intruder at a time.
I guess, yeah. The Guardian kind of never shows up again. I guess,
At the end, he does, right?
That's true. Yeah. But yes, as Sonic is being distracted, Robotnik activates the machine.
Activated, Snively.
Yes, sir.
Enter command or I for spell index. torments, punishments, bones, cages, curses. Oh, what a lovely variety.
I think like I wanted them to go for a joke like press 1 for this, press 2 for this, because they have to wait for the thing to go through everything alphabetically before they get to teleport, right?
You're right, yeah.
But Robotnik is like happy about this. He gets to hear all the things he can do.
He's loving every list, like, ooh, another thing, yeah.
Say more.
I also like that it's not a full joke, but them going like I for index, like that feels like old computer prompts as well. And yeah, so Sonic meanwhile gets caught by Lazar, and this guy is just like a jerkier Yoda, this dude. I'm not a fan of Lazar. But yeah, Sonic and Sally get caught at the same time in this next clip.
Another thief it is. My computer he comes to steal.
Who, me? No. I just took a wrong turn, so I'll be cruising.
Fast not so, little thief.
Hey, let me out of here.
Ravens, rings, submission, slavery, teleports. Oh, that's it. Teleports. Exactly what I need. Name, target. Sonic the Hedgehog. Target out of range. Name, target. Princess Sally. Confirm target. Affirmative.
What happened? Where?
Take her.
Robotnik.
I like this all-powerful device is out of range. It's like, I've only got 2 bars. Let's try Sally.
I think it's super weird because isn't it implied that Knothole is further away probably than the place where Sonic is? Like,
yeah.
Why would Sonic be out of range?
My no prize on that is that Sonic is currently in that bubble, and that affects his range. That's what I'm going to say.
Or there's like a wizard did it. A wizard did it is the answer to this question.
Literally did it.
Yeah, Lazar, someone could correct me, but I don't think he was adapted in any other Sonic media ever after this.
His wiki page on Sonic is on the Sonic website is only this episode. So yeah, Lazar.
Even the writers of the comic, when they were scraping for Sonic things to bring into it, they couldn't figure out how to get Lazar in there.
And I will say that the IMDb and the wiki both say this, but I do not think it is true. They say that Lazar is voiced by Dan Castellaneta, uncredited. No way.
Absolutely not.
There's no. What?
This is IMDb and the wiki. I don't know who said it wrong first, but obviously, wikis aren't always right. So, but
someone's just having some fun. People like to put wrong, crazy things in wikis. And get them referenced many times just to make fake facts.
My personal guess is it's Frank Welker. I think this sounds like a Frank Welker old man voice to me.
I think it's Frank also. Yeah.
Yeah, he's it's just like the standard one you'll get out of Frank. Like, Frank, what's an old man? Like, okay, I got it. Like,
a codger, if you will.
Yeah. But he has to talk in the Yoda backward sentences too. It's a hat on a hat.
That's someone else's shtick. Come on.
And he has like a magic belt that can kind of do anything.
I don't like the belt because when Sonic remembers his words later, he doesn't think of the man's face. He imagines his belt, and I'm confused by that. I'm very confused by why he's like, wow, what a belt.
Yeah, the way that he's like Yoda, it fits into everything else about the show, how ABC's like, we want to age this up and make it more adventurous. And they instantly were just like Blade Runner, Back to the Future, Star Wars. And I think they just instantly just like threw that in. And it made some executive happy.
And yeah, Bob, you're right. If his belt's going to be this important, his design shouldn't have a giant beard that covers the belt.
It's always covering the belt, yeah.
So Sonic is caught, while meanwhile Sally, they come back from the commercial break, and she is caught as well. She's actually able to outrun the Badniks, which is shows how they're so bad at catching Sonic that she outruns them briefly. But then Bunny gets called in as well through teleportation, and this leads to another fun exchange. I think this feels to me like Susie and Cummings were in the same room when they recorded this. I could be wrong, but
What the heck happened? Bunny, run! Run! Hey-ya! Bunny, just go. Go!
You all should learn how to treat a lady.
Stun her!
You are a miserable creep, Robotnik.
Why, thank you, Princess.
Love it.
So good.
And yes, Buddy Rabot, she kicks more butt than Sonic does. She fights those SWAT bots right up front. Yeah.
Kicks him and knocks him over. Sonic doesn't do any of that.
She's really badass. I guess they're saying with a robot attachment, she's kind of equal to them in strength.
Yeah, it does seem strange that she isn't the one to go on missions with Sonic, because it seems like she is easily almost as powerful. I think I might have a hard time remembering this, but I think eventually the comics were like, oh yeah, wait, she can fly, she can probably kick people's asses, we can upgrade her parts so she's more of a badass and can shoot missiles. It makes sense that this is a really cool character.
She has a Bionic Commando style grapple arm too, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's super cool. I remember this joke from an early Archie Comics one it felt like them getting away with it, where they're the joke is the group is forming a band and she's holding up a, drum cymbal and a saxophone. And they're like, well, why do you have this? And she's like, 'cause I'm the team's sax symbol. But
Whoa.
Skirting close to PG there.
The puns in those early comics are insane.
Yeah.
I think later on in the comic, they retcon that her name is actually Rabot. It's a French pronunciation. She's from a Mobius, New Orleans.
I like that. That's because Rabot is a little on the nose, a little bit. And though also she gets, even though it's with the classic stun gun, circular laser thing, I was still a little shocked to see them just shoot her on screen like that.
Pretty violent, yeah.
You don't see lasers hit all that much in Saturday morning cartoons.
It fired rings at her?
Yeah.
A bunch of rings?
I mean, it pretty much was a ripoff of the stun gun that they shoot Princess Leia with at the start of New Hope. And so yes, Sonic's bubble that keeps him in place too. I note that it reminds me more of his power-ups instead of...
Yeah, it's he's stronger now. He can go underwater as much as he wants to.
Yeah, I feel again, somebody got I don't know, a VHS of some gameplay and was use this for inspiration. And they're okay, and just applied things in a way that had no tie-in to the game whatsoever.
This didn't come up in my research, but I am curious how much, if at all, the creative team played the games beforehand or not. I mean, I could see them never touching them, or I could see them having a Genesis in the writer's room. I could imagine it.
It's really hard to tell, and it's some of the early Sonic Bibles, they kind of tell the story of the game through a few scenes where they describe things that happen in the game. So it's possible they just read those and had to come up with stuff based on that.
And so Sonic now, he's going to be freed. He makes a deal with Lazar, but Lazar has one condition.
Yeah, thanks. It's juice and jam time. Man, what'd you do to me? It took your speed, little thief. That's uncool. Why'd you do that? Evil I was. Ignorant I wasn't. Return it when your promise you keep. No prob. But how do I get your computer without my speed? Brains you have. Brains you must use. Why does everything have to be so difficult?
The submission spell sounds so interesting.
What?
Yes, sir.
Whoa.
I wanted to include that too because it's like, wow.
Interesting.
I'd like to go on the record of saying this sucks. Characters shouldn't be able to take Sonic's speed away. Like, why? Please, like as a child watching this, it's just like, don't do this.
It's what you're there for. In the first episode you're seeing in 1993, you're there to see Sonic be fast. Also, like, this entire thing is just like, what are you going to do without your speed, Sonic? Time to use your brains. What Sonic uses is heavy explosives.
Yes. And the brains of kicking people.
Yes.
It's like, hey, get on me. Like, shove. That's his brains.
If there was like a smarter way out of this that was involving his brain, it would have paid off more, but it really doesn't.
Well, and also, I totally can see it from a pitch standpoint of, here's an episode where Sonic loses his super speed and he has to learn to do without it. Like, that makes sense, but this is for the last 5 minutes of the episode. Like, it comes in way too late. The way Sally tells him earlier, like, you can't just rush into things. It doesn't build up that kind of, like, fable moral of the story thing to enough for him.
Yeah, I feel like it would have had to be the focus point of an entire episode. Hey, this is an episode where Sonic doesn't have his speed. How interesting is that? But it just feels like it's kind of thrown in as a way to nerf the character for a few minutes, which, it's kind of like, watching the Spider-Man cartoon and it's like his web cartridges jam every minute,
Yeah, it lets them write. I mean, I think they do have a problem with how do you write a dangerous situation for Sonic when he can move faster than any other character.
Yeah, again, a wizard did it.
Yeah. Though also I'm with Sonic too, that even he says to Lazar, he's like, how do you expect me to get you want your computer back, but you're making me slow? What do you want here?
Makes no sense, it doesn't.
I mean, he's been in a coma for centuries, so I think Lazar is a few packs short of.
Also, what evil did this guy do? Like, don't trust him. Just snap his old neck. Just because you go to sleep doesn't mean you're reformed.
Right? Yeah. I guess he just dreamed the whole time, and that was his reform thing, I suppose. But yeah, so Sonic heads off, and he gets to. Oh, and also, the submission spell is used on Sally, and her reaction to it is watching it happen to Bunny. She's like, "Oh, Bunny." She's like, "This is troubling. Like, it actually is pretty screwed up to see Robotnik excited to learn a submission spell that controls the minds of Sally and Bunny specifically." Yeah, I think they wanted it to be kind of tense. Sonic's slow walk into there and having to dodge things at a normal speed, but it just is kind of boring. He just has a sticky mind. It's not his brain.
Yeah, he blows up the stairs.
If he moved fast or not, he would have used that explosive,
Absolutely.
And then, even more annoying, actually, okay, you're going to take away his speed, and then it should be him using his brains to get to Robotnik. But basically, after like 2 minutes of him not having speed, Robotnik just teleports Sonic to him anyway.
I got on the Wi-Fi.
So it removes any of the tension of like, will Sonic get to Robotnik? It's like, no, actually, Sonic just teleports there. So Sonic is caught. Robotnik is threatening him while also feeding Cluck. I like him feeding Cluck. That Cluck bouncing around is pretty funny.
I'm a Cluck fan.
Apparently, they cut Cluck in the second season.
Yeah, Cluck was gone, but if you play Sonic Spinball, Cluck is in there as a random bad guy.
Cluck fits enough. Like Cluck is in the style of our two favorite guys from Adventures of Sonic, who basically are like, taking off from a Badnik design and making it a regular character.
Yeah.
Though you would think Cluck would sound kind of like the Rooster guy. Scratch from Adventures. Fortunately, he doesn't. And it's taking all of my abilities to not imitate his voice now.
You'll destroy the microphone and parts of your throat.
And then they're going to robotize Sonic, which I remember now, Ian, in your KO episode with Sonic, robotization is a big moment in that episode.
And we even based the design directly off the SatAM one and one from the comics. It's kind of a merge of those two. I agree with what Bob was saying. It's like in the game, the concept of animals inside robots is kind of harmless, but here it's body horror for sure.
And especially with the permanence of it. Like you might, with a lot of work, you might get their memory back, but you're still always going to be a robot.
It's almost like Borg-like.
Yeah.
Star Trek Borg vibes
really
from this.
Yeah, the design of the one you guys had in the KO episode was very similar with the, like, it was tubes and glass, and hoses and everything. A very like tactile kind of design that I just love the design of Robotnik's throne room in general. Like it has the feel a bit of a dingier Darth Vader throne room kind of thing.
Yeah, you can definitely feel like the H.R. Geiger alien style, like in like the throne room a little bit. It definitely reminds me of like that control room that's in Aliens. It's very similar. And also just like, I don't know, I feel like maybe in the second season they go into the lore of the roboticizer a lot.
Oh yeah.
And I love the idea behind it. The lore is really fun, that it's like, oh, this is maybe something that could help people who are like hurt and dying. It can create prosthetic arms and limbs for them, but then he turns it evil. It's a very fun idea.
They really shouldn't have trusted that Robotnik.
But like in this next scene, Sonic is once again tasked with using his brain, and it's like Bunny and Sally grab him and hold him on the platform. He uses his brain by shoving them away.
Yes. Finally, I thought of the idea of physical force.
I can use my brain to move my arms and legs.
Look, Sonic's just doing what we're all thinking. We're not here for Sonic using his brain.
I like that. I do like that he at least apologizes too for the show. Like, sorry, Bunny. And so Sonic saves both Sally and Bunny in this next clip.
Sal, Bunny, what are you guys doing here?
Ladies, if you please. Well, Hedgehog.
Hey, what's going on?
I have you at last.
What'd you do to them, Robotnik?
I made them obedient. Perhaps I should roboticize them, starting with you, Princess.
Sal, hold up! Don't do this! Sal, it's me, your best friend, your best bud, your main squeeze.
Shut your mouth, hedgehog.
Activating. Dialing.
Sorry, Bunny.
And yeah, you're right. He flashes back to that belt, which I don't know. Okay, so does it tell him that he needs to press a button to make the computer work? What does the flashback do?
For a second, I didn't know he was remembering the wizard, because I'm like, what is this? What is he even thinking of? Why not like Sonic? His eyes are up there, buddy. It's like, I can't stop.
It's really hard to tell what Sonic's revelation was there. I really kind of lost it. I was like, oh, did I like kind of zone out watching this? But okay, I guess it seems to be resolving itself.
Yeah, like the thing he remembers Lazar saying is "up to you, little thief."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does that bring him? Where does that get him?
My best guess is that he's watching him press a button on his belt, and so that then taught Sonic that he should press a button on the AI robot magic thing. It's also weird for a kid show that often would have like characters over explain reasons. You think there would just be a quick thing where Sonic goes like, "That's right, like the button there. I remember now."
Frankly, I needed that.
But so Sonic deprograms the both of them. I also like Bunny Rabbot's, let's get the hip hop out of here. That's cute.
I also like Sonic squeezing in his relationship to Sally by saying like your main squeeze. Right in.
But it's kind of said like a little quieter, like your main squeeze, Yeah. There's sometimes where Sonic, there's a real moonlighting thing with them, because sometimes they get closer, and then like in the final episode, she wants to kiss and he's like, yeah, I don't know. He's scared of intimacy, Sonic is. Also, they're not really the swap bots aren't doing such a great job here. They just let Sonic get away.
No, there's only like two of them.
And Robotnik should be really more upset that Sonic has the magic thing that can do anything. He should probably care more, but we do get I despise that miserable hedgehog Cluck. I was sad we didn't get a line where he calls him rodent. I wish we had that.
That would be good.
I just realized Lazar, is that just like a funny way to say laser? What's this little guy's name? Lazar. There we go.
Could also be like a Lazarus type thing.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I mean, this whole ending really is a real shrug of wait, what? What? No. Sally directly, at least they have her say it, but why doesn't this guy fix everything now?
Yeah, time to go back to bed.
She says, can't we have this? We could do a lot with it. No. Well, why don't you destroy it? No.
It's a weird first episode because you're the thing that could solve all of our problems is now just gone.
Yes. Shrunk into
Very
nothingness.
confusing.
Yeah. It feels like they got to the end of the script and they're like, wait, doesn't this fix every problem we have? Get it out of here.
And the shrinking cave or whatever, Cave of Wonders, really upset me. It's it could do this?
You could just do that at any time.
That was amazing. It was just almost like the equivalent of seeing someone dust off their hands and saying, all right, problem solved.
It's gone. No need to think about it. Lazar will never come back. I think Sally, they are treating him nicely, but I think Sally's probably just thinking, this kooky guy, forget it. I'm not dealing with him. But yes, before Lazar goes, Sonic gets his juice back.
Sonic, your speed I return. Luck to you, Sonic.
And to you, Lazar.
It's a shrinking.
We better juice. Music to my ears.
Man, I'm glad you guys are back.
So are we.
What happened?
It's a long story, bud. Oh, and it'll keep till morning.
Well, this won't. Check out the water wheel.
That's what you guys have been working on?
Yes. Isn't it fantastic?
What is his emotion at the end there?
I really feel like they cut a line where he was like, a single light bulb? Wow!
That would make it more clear. I think it's supposed to be disappointment.
I couldn't tell if he was just oh, good, we have electricity now, or just this is what we are doing.
I think that was my read on it, that it's you guys have been working all this time to turn on one light bulb. That's my guess, but it's also not particularly clear.
Yeah, I think it was just supposed to be a rejoinder of him not paying attention to what they were doing earlier. But I feel like that was too long ago for us to really pick up on that, so I don't know.
Also, in another very tidy moment, it could just have Sonic run them back, but instead they get teleported back, which I guess is Lazar's last thing he does. He teleports them home safely, I guess.
I mean, as long as we're dusting off our hands, let's just teleport them back.
The wizard just teleports them back to the next scene there. Done.
But you can't break that computer because all the evil would come out of it.
Sure, yeah. Like when you break a regular computer, all that electricity's got to go somewhere.
When you drop your phone, all the evil leaks out.
Then the listeners, you'll get to hear the post-credits sequence of hearing Sonic promote Tales from the Crypt Keeper, which was premiering that same day. Which I remember that show was I didn't watch it because I wanted a real scary Tales from the Crypt, and when I knew it was this is the cartoon Tales from the Crypt, the John Kassir is also the voice on it, so that at least they paid for the real voice.
It's not good without the disgusting puppet.
Yeah. It wasn't without the puppet, really, what do you have? I remember really wanting to watch the cartoon as a kid, but just being bored by it every time.
Yeah, Mutant League Football was better. Yeah, you know, now I want to watch it just to see. The only thing I would judge it by now is like how good are the puns, because there need to be good puns in a Crypt Keeper show. But
I do remember there were a lot of puns, and they,
Okay.
you know, I don't know. I can't remember if they stood out as a young child.
well, in the future, someday we'll do a What a Cartoon on Tales from the Crypt Keeper. But
Somebody's got to be a fan, and they're probably writing a message to us right now.
But yeah, I guess my final thoughts on this are that I remembered the show better than the show itself was, but I do still appreciate the world they built, and I think it is not a bad place for stories to grow from, but within the time constraints, budget constraints, and ABC network constraints, there's only so much they can do in the playground that is SatAM.
That was perfectly said. Yeah, I mean, they had ambitions, but the platform and the time they had and money did not really work to their advantage in making the product they wanted to make. So it was, I think, a little bit ahead of its time, actually, but not like on par with, like, you know, Batman the Animated Series. But for Saturday morning fare, it did try a little harder than other things, and I do appreciate it for that.
Yeah, I would definitely have to concur that it was so ahead of its time in terms of the open-ended world building of it, and the fact that the show itself, looking at it, you could tell that there was a lore and a backstory, and these characters came from somewhere. And that definitely did activate something in me as a kid watching it. And I think that's why I was so drawn to it. And I also think that's why for like a decade or so after this, the writers for the comic were pretty much going to this well and spinning a world basically out of this. And it was a little messy. I think towards the end, they hired a writer called Ian Flynn who kind of ironed out the whole lore of the thing. And they had, I feel like just before all the legal troubles started, they had just figured out how to tell like really good, engaging stories in that world. Of course, you know, the comic had to end like right when they did that, but it was a very fertile ground, and the characters are all like a lot of fun, except for maybe Antoine, who's kind of hard to handle.
That's no Antoine in this episode.
Thank God.
You know that Archie thing you mentioned, that because it was a long running comic, it also went through pretty much like what DC or Marvel does too, of just like a reset of continuity, a Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of thing. That I remember Ian Flynn too. He wrote the Mega Man series that Archie did too. That was had a pretty good handle on the universe of it all.
That one was probably a little easier because he didn't have to get like the entire history of multiple canons of the character all into one comic. It was kind of just a straight adaptation of one series, even though they did Mega Man X, I think, towards the end. But the Sonic one, it's like, this is a character that, you know, is at war with itself in several ways, with all the different continuities that existed. And this show is an interesting window into one way of seeing those games. Like, who is Sonic? Who is Robotnik? Okay, Sonic seems like he must be leading a team of freedom fighters who are eco-terrorists taking down this regime. And I guess this show was the first way to really put it that way.
So thanks again, Ian, for being on the show. I don't know if you know what you'll be doing in September, because I don't know what I'll be doing in September, but is there anything you want to promote or plug, or your Twitter account perhaps?
Hey, I've nothing to plug, nothing to promote. My Twitter, though, is @IanJQ. I don't really tweet there that much, but I'm around. I'm just a cartoon guy. Maybe I'm going to make more cartoons someday, and Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. And you know what? If all of our listeners and their families all watched OKKO on HBO Max, you know, that couldn't hurt.
So thanks again to Ian Jones-Quartey for being on the show. Be sure to check out all of OKKO Let's Be Heroes on there. But as for us, if you want to support our show and get all these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up there for $5 a month and you'll get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That includes all the bonus podcasts we've been making for the past 3+ years, over 100 at this point. Our most recent mini-series was Talking Mission Hill. You sign up, you'll get that, and also all the other mini-series we've done, and everything else behind that paywall is yours immediately upon signing up for $5 at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And Henry, what is happening at the $10 level? I hear there is one mega-long podcast once a month that is just for patrons of that level or higher.
That is correct, Bob. That's the What a Cartoon movie, which you listeners of What a Cartoon get to hear the free preview of it each month when we do it as our last episode of each month. But at the $10 level, you get to hear the often over 4-hour-long podcast where we talk about an animated feature film in depth. Our most recent one would be about Ghost in the Shell, the anime classic from 1995, and some before that have included The Black Cauldron, Toy Story, so many more. Can't list them all here, but you'll be able to hear all of those, the entire back catalog, and whenever there's a new one, if you are a $10 and up subscriber at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So as for me, I have been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast outside of this is Retronauts. So there's a classic gaming podcast. You can find Retronauts wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts, sign up there, and get 2 exclusive episodes every month. Again, that is patreon.com/Retronauts. Henry, how about you?
Follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREYG. You'll stay in the loop about what's going on in my life and my worldview by following me there. Also, if you want to stay up to date with what's happening with this podcast and its sister podcast, Talking Simpsons, follow the official Twitter account for that, at Talk Simpsons Pod. At Talk Simpsons Pod will keep you in the loop whenever we've got new podcasts on the Patreon or the free feeds, or whenever we have, say, a cool new t-shirt. Tons of neat stuff you'll always be up to date with if you follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you again next week for the Dungeons & Dragons episode, The Night of No Tomorrow, and we'll see you then.
Hi, Sonic the Hedgehog here. My bud the Crypt Keeper may be lean and mean, but his ghost stories are the best you've ever seen. Tales from the Crypt Keeper, premiering today on ABC.
Next, when Thing lends his own personal touch to the Addams art show, things really get out of hand. Can the Addams family handle it? Stay tuned and find out.
Can I make a little suggestion? We're all ears, buddy. Let's get the hip hop out of here.